Chapter 165. Truly troublesome. The green-robed old man muttered. He coldly looked at Zhao Chuanliang and shouted, "Old man, if you don't want to kill, then scram." In truth, what the eighth extreme demon lord said wasn't false. He really didn't want to kill right now. Serene was even more mysterious than a rank 4 or 5 cultivation country. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to have an unnecessary feud with Serene. What made him angry the most was that this fight wasn't for him, but for a junior that had nothing to do with him and was only useful to him. Zhao Chuanliang stared at the green-robed old man, and his pupils shrank. Just then, the old man had casually waved his hand and dissolved his attack. This shocked Zhao Chuanliang. After reading the news from the Hofen Union, Zhao Chuanliang had already evaluated this person. The reason why he had called all the nascent soul cultivators was to prevent this person from appearing. But now, it seemed that this person's cultivation level was even higher than he expected. Zhao Chuanliang pondered a bit and said, "Senior, this person is related to an important matter for Serene. I must take him away today." The green-robed old man let out a sigh and thought, "Why is this kid so troublesome? Of all people, why did he have to provoke Serene? If he had a choice, he would just wave his sleeves and leave, but he had no choice. Compared to offending Serene, once he entered that place and obtained something, it wouldn't matter if he offended Serene. Also, from what that brat Ma Liang did, it was clear that Ma Liang knew that he would attack. Thinking about this, although he felt a lot of hatred, he also felt a bit of admiration. It must be said that people who cultivate the demonic path of thinking are different from others. The eighth extreme demon lord thought that Wang Lin's actions were reasonable. If it was him, he would have done the same thing. After hearing Zhao Chuanliang's words, the eighth extreme demon lord frowned. He looked at Wang Lin and said, "How did you provoke Serene this time?" Wang Lin looked at the menacing Serene group and calmly said, "I don't know." Zhao Chuanliang's eyes were like lightning as he stared at Wang Lin. "You don't know? You killed my Serene disciple on the burning Gold Mountain Range, and you dare to say you don't know?" Wang Lin rolled his eyes and said, "I still don't know." With that, he didn't even look at the green-robed old man as he began to cultivate. However, Wang Lin had already made up his mind that if the green-robed old man didn't act, he would use the earth escape technique to enter the Sea of Devils. Zhao Chuanliang sneered and looked at the green-robed elder. "Senior, not only did this person kill my Serene's disciple, but he also captured Su Ligua, a disciple of the Heavenly Dipper sect in the rank 4 cultivation country, the Heavenly Dipper sect in the Heavenly Dipper country. I paid a great price to personally go to the rank 5 cultivation country to buy this from Old Man Universe, so there can't be a mistake." The green-robed elder's face turned ugly as he gloomily said, Old Man Universe's cultivation base is amazing, and he used Su Ligua's soul lamp to divine what happened that day. It was this person named Ma Liang who killed my Serene's disciple and captured Su Ligua's origin soul. With that, Zhao Chuanliang waved his right hand and his body suddenly disappeared. The 4 nascent soul cultivators behind him also disappeared and reappeared in front of the 8th extreme demon lord. As for Zhao Chuanliang, he appeared above Wang Lin and slammed the black mist in his hand down. At the same time, the core formation cultivators inside the formation shouted in unison and chanted strange notes. The formation quickly shook and spread out to cover an area of 5,000 kilometers. A cold glint appeared in the 8th extreme demon lord's eyes. His body swayed and split into 2. His clone appeared between Zhao Chuanliang and Wang Lin. The clone opened its mouth and sucked in all the black mist. "Presumptuous!" the clone yelled. An emerald gourd suddenly appeared in his right hand. As he slammed it, the cork on the gourd's mouth fell off, and an enormous force was released from the gourd. Ripples could be seen coming out from the gourd's mouth. The more the ripples spread, the larger the area they covered. Zhao Chuanliang was the first to be affected. His face changed, and he and the 4 nascent soul cultivators who were in front of the 8th extreme demon lord quickly teleported back to the big formation. A cold glint appeared in the old man's eyes. With a deep voice, he slowly said, "The old man hasn't killed for a long time. Even a few early nascent soul cultivators dare to act so presumptuously in front of me. If Ma Yang is harmed in the slightest, the old man will immediately go to your serene and exterminate your entire sect. With that said, he reached out with his left hand and formed a hand the size of a small mountain. As if he were crushing a child's toy, Shireen's transportation formation shattered with a loud crack. A ring-shaped ripple of energy spread out in all directions. It was as if the clouds were being pushed forward and the black wooden coffins behind them rumbled and spread far and wide. Aside from the 5 nascent soul cultivators who dodged with pale faces, all of the core formation cultivators turned to ash along with the black wooden coffins behind them. Zhao Chuanliang's body trembled. He stared at the old man and bitterly said, "Senior's cultivation is profound, but it is not wise to become enemies with me, Shireen. With Senior's knowledge, you must have some understanding of me, Shireen. However, I can tell Senior that what you know is only the tip of the iceberg. I advise Senior to not become enemies with Shireen. Otherwise, even if Senior is one of the city lords of the Sea of Devils 7 Apricot City, it will be difficult for you to escape death." The 8th Extreme Demon Lord expression was gloomy. He didn't want to offend Shireen, so he didn't kill the 5 core formation cultivators. As for the core formation cultivators, he had scanned them with his divine sense. None of them were possessed, so he didn't hesitate to kill them all. The old man frowned and slowly said, "This person is very useful to the old man, or else he wouldn't bother with this kind of annoying matter. You all can leave now. If you miss this opportunity, the old man won't stop you." Wang Lin coldly watched the scene unfold. When the old man crushed the transfer array, although his expression remained the same, his heart was shaken. This 8th Extreme Demon Lord first destroyed the Hof and Union's protective formation. Then he easily crushed the transfer array of Shireen. Wang Lin guessed what level of cultivation this 8th Extreme Demon Lord had reached. He vaguely had an answer that made it hard for him to breathe. In truth, he had guessed this answer a long time ago. From the moment he was chased by the 8th Extreme Demon Lord in the Sea of Devils, everything he encountered showed just how powerful the 8th Extreme Demon Lord's cultivation was. Soul Formation Stage. This 8th Extreme Demon Lord's cultivation was most likely at the Soul Formation Stage, or else he wouldn't have been able to do all of this so easily. After hearing Zhao Chuanliang talk about the 7 Apricot Land in the Sea of Devils, Wang Lin immediately paid attention and memorized it. His eyes fell on the 7 apricot flowers on the old man's robe. Zhao Chuanliang pondered a bit. He coldly stared at Wang Lin and slowly said, "Ma Liang, Shireen is far stronger than you can imagine. Offending Shireen is the biggest mistake of your life." With that, his body flashed and disappeared. The 4 nascent soul cultivators beside him also coldly looked at Wang Lin before disappearing. Wang Lin pondered. If it wasn't for the fact that Shireen's disciple attacked first and used a killing move, he wouldn't have killed him. Also, if he had allowed the 8th Extreme Demon Lord to escape, it would have caused a lot of unnecessary trouble, so he decided to kill him. However, in the cultivation world, the strong preyed on the weak. Shireen was like a giant. If he said you were wrong, you would be the anchor. Even if you were right, you would still be wrong. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He was still very careful, but he still couldn't avoid causing trouble. All of this was because of his cultivation level. If his cultivation level was the same as the 8th Extreme Demon Lord's, then even if he killed someone, it wouldn't matter much. At this moment, Wang Lin's determination to reach the nascent soul stage reached an unprecedented level. Whether it was for himself or to return to Zhao to find Tung Huayuan, he had to reach the nascent soul stage. Otherwise, all of this would just be an illusion, a dream. The 8th Extreme Demon Lord turned around to look at Wang Lin. His voice was gloomy as he said, "Little guy, this is the 2nd time the old man has helped you. Even though there were some misunderstandings before, it was enough. I hope you won't play any unnecessary tricks when you enter that place." The 8th Extreme Demon Lord now had a good understanding of Wang Lin's schemes from these past few days. Adding on the chase from before, he felt that this Ma Yangduan was a good candidate to become a demonic cultivator. He was able to analyze the situation at the corpse sect the moment he heard about it. From this, it could be seen that Ma Liangduan was ruthless and bold. In the Sea of Devils, he was under the 10,000 Devil 100-day kill order. He killed everyone who was chasing him until their faces changed color and their hearts trembled in fear. This showed how decisive and ruthless he was. When he first left the Sea of Devils, Ma Liang dared to leave a flying sword to ambush him and even made him bleed. This showed how courageous Ma Liang was. If that was it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Ma Liang was able to use the power of the Hofen Union to easily observe the divine path. This showed how meticulous he was. Just now, when Zhao Chuanliang made his move, he, a mere core formation cultivator, actually had the determination to remain unfazed even if a mountain collapsed in front of him. He didn't show the slightest sign of absent-mindedness and calmly answered without a trace of panic. In addition to all of this, the 8th Extreme Demon Lord thought about how he had spent 3 years to capture Ma Liang. The only way to describe Ma Liang was to say that he was as cunning as a fox. This person was vicious, merciless, audacious, decisive, and cold-blooded. However, he was also courageous, meticulous, determined, and as cunning as a fox. Even the 8th Extreme Demon Lord's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. He stared at Wang Lin as his eyes lit up and a thought appeared in his mind. I've reached my limit and can't write anymore. I originally planned on giving everyone a surprise on the first day of September by writing 12,000 words, but I can't do it anymore. I still need to think about the plot. I wish everyone a happy reading, and I'll give you the monthly tickets for August. Chapter 166. However, the moment this thought appeared, it disappeared. He secretly sighed. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to enter that place, he might have taken this kid as a disciple. However, right now, whether or not this kid would survive was another matter. At this moment, his expression suddenly changed as he stared into the distance. Wang Lin immediately noticed a strange fluctuation of spiritual energy coming from the horizon. This fluctuation was very long, but it was filled with a powerful aura. He saw a middle-aged scholar wearing a gray robe and a scarf floating over from the distance. This person's face was as white as jade, and there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. His body was like a willow in the wind as he floated down from the sky. He waved his sleeve and calmly said, "Duanmu Ji, is my earth boat still useful?" Wang Lin's pupils shrank, and he was secretly on guard. This person's cultivation level was the same as the 8th Extreme Demon Lord's, so he couldn't see through it. However, from the way this person talked to the 8th Extreme Demon Lord, his cultivation level must be similar to the 8th Extreme Demon Lord's. 8th Extreme Demon Lord Duanmu let out a snort as he took out the earth boat. He threw it out and said, "Useful my ass. You think this broken thing is a treasure? You gave it to the old man for free, but the old man didn't want it." The white-robed scholar caught it and waved his hand. The earth boat disappeared without a trace. His gaze swept the area before landing on Wang Lin. He calmly said, "Why is there another core formation, Junior?" Duanmu Ji rolled his eyes and said, "I have my own use for him. Let's go. That place is about to open." With that, he waved his sleeves, and the gourd flew out. After it grew in size, he jumped onto it. Wang Lin looked at the white-robed scholar and landed on it. He was secretly vigilant. The moment the white-robed scholar appeared, the white-robed scholar's divine sense had been scanning Wang Lin. Just at this moment, Duanmu's voice entered his ears. "This person is Wang Qingyue. He is a messenger from the rank 4 cultivation countries, Yin-Yang sect. His cultivation level is very high, so don't mess with him." Wang Lin's expression remained the same, but his heart became even more vigilant. The three of them quickly charged into the Sea of Devils. Wang Lin coldly observed. Wang Qingyue didn't have any treasures under his feet, but his speed was comparable to the gourd's. The fog in the Sea of Devils would often be pushed aside by an invisible force within 30 feet of him. Not long after, the three of them sank to the bottom of the Sea of Devils. Soon, Nindo City was in sight, but the three of them didn't stop. They flew directly above Nindo City. Along the way, all the cultivators who saw the three of them were shocked and quickly scattered. Some of them seemed to recognize the gourd and quickly stood respectfully to the side. Only after the gourd passed did they dare to fly. Wang Qingyue's expression was calm as he slowly said, "The 8th Extreme Demon Lord's prestige is not small. I can't believe there are people who recognize him in the outer region of the Sea of Devils." Although the three of them were very fast, their voices were very calm. Duanmu looked around and said, "The 8th Extreme Demon Lord's prestige is not small. If we go to the internal endless sea, there will be more people who know me. If you see me, won't you say a few cold words?" He looked at Wang Lin and said to Duanmu, "If you bring a core formation cultivator there, aren't you sending him to his death?" Duanmu calmly said, "Don't underestimate this person. He knows the death spell. It will be very useful in the 3rd trial." Wang Qingyue was startled, but shortly after, his eyes shined brightly as he stared at Wang Lin. He revealed a strange smile, but soon the light in his eyes dimmed. He shook his head and sighed. "Unfortunately, if you were at the nascent soul stage, I would have to ask for your guidance." Wang Lin silently pondered and didn't speak. Wang Qingyue stared at Duanmu and suddenly asked, "Duanmu, you went there 1,000 years ago. You must have found some treasure. Otherwise, why would you care so much about it? Where's that place? The thing you mentioned, is it really there?" Wang Qingyue stared at Duanmu Ji and suddenly asked. Wang Qingyue stared at Duanmu and slowly said, "I got this green gourd from that place. Wang Qingyue, this is all I can tell you. Once we get there, you'll naturally know. Sorry." Wang Qingyue looked at the gourd a few times. His expression didn't change at all. After that, he silently followed Duanmu. The three of them flew at high speed. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. During this month, the three of them didn't stop at all. Along the way, Wang Lin passed by 4 cities and saw more and more cultivators. This place was much more prosperous than Nando City. On this day, the three of them could see a very large mountain in the distance. It was so tall that they couldn't see the bottom of it. Duanmu slapped the gourd and flew toward the mountain. Soon, they arrived at the back of the mountain. There was a large valley inside, but it was strangely quiet without any signs of life. Duanmu was familiar with the path and soon arrived at the center of the valley. He jumped down from the gourd, formed a seal with his right hand, and pushed forward. Suddenly, a strange gust of wind appeared in the surroundings and blew away the mist, revealing an empty space. After Wang Lin jumped down from the gourd, the first thing he saw was a large circular formation on the empty space. The formation was engraved with countless small words and emitted an ancient aura. After Wang Qingyue saw the formation, he had a strange expression and looked at Duanmu thoughtfully. Duanmu slapped his bag of holding and took out a diamond-shaped spirit stone that emitted a milky white glow. He revealed a pained expression and placed it in a groove at the center of the formation. Duanmu muttered, "This damn formation is simply eating spirit stones. I'm afraid this top-quality spirit stone of mine will be useless after this transfer." Wang Qingyue's eyes shone brightly once more as he stared at the rhombus-shaped spirit stone that was emitting a milky white halo. He asked in a deep voice, "Duanmu Ji, did you get this top-grade spirit stone from there?" "That's right. Back then, I obtained 3 pieces. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to enter that place. Only this ancient teleportation array can do that. Back then, I and a few friends followed the clues left behind in ancient records and searched for nearly 1,000 years before finally finding the location. Then, we spent a large amount of spirit stones and materials to exchange for several top-quality spirit stones from the Vermilion Bird Garden before we were able to enter." Duanmu Ji spoke in a bad mood as he activated the formation. Wang Qingyue stared at the top-quality spirit stone and slowly said, "Top-quality spirit stone. Top-quality spirit stones are very rare in all of Suzaku. Rumor has it that they are the main currency used between cultivation planets. If that place has top-quality spirit stones, then even if there aren't any soul transformation pills, it would still be worth exploring." Duanmu stared at Wang Lin and muttered, "This transfer array is not like you think. It doesn't lead to that place. It leads to the chaotic, broken stars of the Sea of Devils. Once we get there, we can meet up with a few friends and head there together. Otherwise, the distance between here and the inner sea is too far. If we were to fly, it would take us at least 100 years to get there. Also, ignoring the dangerous areas around the outer sea. Just the red mist between the inner and outer sea is something that we can pass with our cultivation levels, but this brat will die for sure. Why else do you think I would be so free as to use top-quality spirit stones to get here? Duanmuji stared at Wang Lin and muttered. Duanmu stared at Wang Lin and muttered. Duanmu's hand formed several seals. Gradually, the top-quality spirit stone in the center of the transfer array began to light up. Soon, all of the symbols in the transfer array began to light up as well. After all of the symbols lit up, the top-quality spirit stone shattered. The entire teleportation formation suddenly moved and emitted a huge amount of spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was almost solid and turned into a whirlwind. The surrounding fog was immediately sucked in. In the blink of an eye, a huge spiritual energy whirlwind with a diameter of more than 10 zhong suddenly rose from the teleportation formation. The higher it went, the bigger the whirlwind became. Such a majestic scene caused Wang Lin to take a deep breath. His gaze couldn't help but fall on the groove in the center of the transfer array. The top-quality spirit stone inside had already turned to dust and was blown away by the whirlwind. However, the spiritual energy inside the top-quality spirit stone made Wang Lin's heart beat faster. Compared to it, not even high-quality spirit stones, even if there were tens of thousands of them piled together, could have such an effect. This was not the same level of spiritual energy at all. Duanmu's body flashed. He arrived next to Wang Lin and said, "Go in." Wang Lin sneered in his heart. He immediately saw through Duanmu's thoughts. Duanmu was worried that if he was the last one to enter, something bad might happen. Wang Lin's expression remained the same. Without a word, he flew into the whirlwind and stood inside the transfer array. Duanmu followed him into the transfer array. Wang Qingwei was the last to enter. He carefully looked around before slowly entering. Shortly after, the whirlwind in the sky suddenly stopped and began to move down like crazy. The entire mountain trembled, and Wang Lin's group of 3 immediately disappeared. After a long time, the area returned to normal. The fog that was pushed away slowly surrounded the area again. The Sea of Devils was very large. Between the inner and outer seas, there was a layer of red fog. If one didn't have a certain level of cultivation, the slightest contact with the red fog would cause their body to be corroded and disappear. Their divine sense would also be trapped in the red fog for the rest of their lives. This red fog was like a natural barrier between the inner and outer seas. Every year, when the fog turned into the sea, there would be one day when the red fog would disappear. Cultivators who wanted to enter the inner sea or leave would often choose this day to quickly pass through the red fog. After passing through the red fog, one would arrive at the inner Sea of Devils. There were many powerful cultivators here, and many famous devils lived in seclusion here. The inner sea was also very large. If one were to fly, it would take at least 100 years to reach the edge. In the northern part of the inner sea, there was a plain called the Chaotic Broken Stars. This was the only place in the Sea of Devils that wouldn't be affected even if the fog turned into the sea. There was a layer of mysterious rocks that acted as a natural barrier here. Today, my child was sick, so he just went to sleep. This chapter was written while I was busy. I'll continue to write as fast as I can so that I can publish another chapter at 12. For those that I owe, I'll postpone it until the 10th. Sorry, everyone. Chapter 167. The rocks in the ring were pulled together by a strange force. This 100-mile wide ring of rocks was how the Chaotic Broken Stars got its name. This place was also known as the Death Zone. If one's cultivation level had reached the nascent soul stage, they would have to force their way through the red mist between the inner and outer seas before the mist turned into a sea. Only a few out of 10 people would be able to succeed. However, if they tried to force their way through the Chaotic Broken Stars, all 10 of them would die without a single survivor. For a long time, the Chaotic Broken Stars of the inner Sea of Devils were known as one of the most dangerous places. Rumor has it that this place existed before the Sea of Devils turned into fog. Countless cultivators had tried to enter, but none of them came back. Even though a few managed to pass through the Chaotic Broken Stars, none of them came back. Even those rank 5 cultivation countries couldn't send a large amount of experts because of how chaotic the area was. Adding on the fact that no one knew what was inside, If they put in a lot of effort and came back empty-handed, it wouldn't be worth it. As time went on, the number of cultivators that tried to enter the chaotic broken stars decreased. This situation changed 10,000 years ago when a powerful cultivator from Suzuka's only rank 6 cultivation country, Rosefinch, entered the Sea of Devils by himself. He challenged countless powerful cultivators, and no one was a match for him. In the end, he entered the chaotic broken stars and was never heard from again. 10 years later, Suzaku sent a large amount of powerful cultivators to seal the chaotic broken stars. They announced that anyone who tried to enter would be killed without mercy. As a result, this place became even more dangerous and would cause people's expressions to change when they talked about it. Even though the shocking situation had been alleviated a bit, there was still no cultivation ground within a 10,000-mile radius. On this day, outside of the chaotic broken stars, in a deep valley shrouded in black mist, a whirlpool suddenly appeared. The whirlpool grew larger and larger, and soon, an empty space appeared. On the ground, there was an ancient teleportation array. The array shone with a blinding light, and as the light grew brighter, 3 figures slowly appeared inside. The moment Wang Lin appeared in the transfer array, he immediately saw the ring of rocks in the distance. Rocks of all shapes and sizes were connected by purple lightning. They formed a ring that slowly moved. From a distance, the ring of rocks was about 50 kilometers wide. It was impossible to see the end. This was Wang Qingyue's first time here. His eyes lit up as he looked at the ring of rocks and asked, "This is the chaotic broken stars?" Duanmu looked over with mixed feelings. After a long time, he slowly said, "Yes, this is the place. It has been 1,000 years and nothing has changed here." Wang Qingyue's eyes lit up. He licked his lips and said, "Rumor has it that the number 1 cultivator in Rosefinch disappeared in the chaotic broken stars. I want to see what mysteries this place has." Wang Lin was silent for a while. Then he said to Duanmu, "The place Senior mentioned is inside the chaotic broken stars?" Duanmu nodded. He looked at the depths of the chaotic broken stars with fear still lingering on his face. He said, "This ring of rocks is filled with a mysterious power. Once you enter it, this mysterious power will enter your body. The rocks will form a doppelganger that is exactly the same as your original body. Moreover, the doppelganger's cultivation will be 1 level higher than your original body. No matter how you try to suppress your cultivation, it will be useless. Once the doppelganger appears, only by defeating it will you be able to walk 50 kilometers. After 50 kilometers, the doppelganger will appear again. This time, there will be 2. Only by winning again will you be able to walk through the chaotic broken stars." Wang Lin looked up. Duanmu seemed to know what he was thinking and continued, "If you enter from above or below, then even though there are no rocks, the doppelganger will still appear, and it will be 10 at once." Wang Lin stared at the ring of rocks and didn't say anything. Wang Qingyue stared for a while, then his eyes lit up. The corner of his mouth moved, revealing a cruel smile. He said, "Such an interesting place, I must go and have a look." With that, his body instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already outside the chaotic stars ring. Without any hesitation, he immediately stepped in. Wang Lin calmed his mind and stared without blinking. The moment Wang Qingyue entered, the rocks in front of him were pulled together by purple lightning. Within the purple lightning, a doppelganger that looked exactly like Wang Qingyue appeared in front of him. Even the smile on the corner of his mouth was the same. Without saying anything, he rushed forward. Waves of loud explosions came from the place where the two were fighting. Duanmu snorted and said, "It won't be long before he comes back. How can we fight a doppelganger that is 1 level higher?" Wang Lin was silent for a while. Then he suddenly said, "How did you enter last time?" Duanmu pointed at the teleportation array and said, "Through it. Last time, we had an array expert on our side. Plus, we obtained some inheritance items related to the chaotic broken stars, which recorded the method to create the teleportation array to enter this place. We also had 10 top-quality spirit stones, so we were able to enter." "What is inside the chaotic broken stars?" Wang Lin frowned and asked in a low voice. Duanmu looked at Wang Lin and waved his hand. The strand of divine sense he left in Wang Lin's body was withdrawn. He slowly said, "Fine, since we are already here, there is no harm in telling you. According to the inheritance items we obtained, there's an ancient god's corpse inside the chaotic broken stars." Ancient god? Wang Lin was startled. God Ji was in existence similar to immortal Ji in ancient times. In some aspects, he was even stronger than immortal Ji. These words were not spoken by Duanmu Ji, but by a black-robed old man who had suddenly appeared beside Duanmu Ji at lightning speed from afar. The old man was tall and thin, with 3 strands of white hair fluttering in the wind. His face was full of the aura of an immortal. He held a horsetail whisk in his hand, making him look like an immortal. There was a hint of kindness in his eyes as he nodded at Wang Lin with a smile and said, "Young friend, the strength of this ancient god has already surpassed a certain realm and reached an unimaginable level. You have to know that the era of the ancient gods was even older than the ancient times." Although Wang Lin's expression was normal, he was secretly on guard. Although the other party's appearance was full of righteousness, Wang Lin had a feeling that this person's cultivation was a bit higher than Duanmu's. When the old man finished speaking, he casually swept the horsetail whisk in his hand and smiled at Wang Lin. However, this smile was slightly ferocious. Wang Lin had always been on guard. When the other party swept the horsetail whisk, he felt a strong sense of danger. Without hesitation, he quickly retreated. At the same time, he patted his storage bag, and a large number of jade talismans appeared in his hand. These jade talismans were all defensive types. With a series of crackling sounds, the jade talismans instantly shattered. At the same time, Duanmu Ji casually stepped forward with his right foot and stood between Wang Lin and the old man. A black semicircle of light immediately appeared in front of him, dispersing the attack from the horsetail whisk. The light screen trembled as Duanmu Ji narrowed his eyes and stared at the other party. His expression was unprecedentedly serious as he said word by word, "Ancient Emperor, this kid is an important person to pass the 3rd stage. Don't be rash." Hearing this, the Ji Emperor's expression did not change at all. However, his smile slowly faded. At this moment, he not only did not have the aura of an immortal, but instead had an extraordinary aura. He calmly said, "Are you sure?" Duanmu Ji nodded and said, "He knows the death curse art." The Ji Emperor glanced at Wang Lin, then turned and walked to the side. He stopped 3 zhang away from the 2 of them and looked at the gravel area without saying a word. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy. In his eyes, this Jilon was a madman. There was no reason for him to kill the moment they met. A moment ago, he was still smiling, but the next moment he was ferocious. Duanmu Ji stood beside Wang Lin and said, "His name is Gulan, but we all call him Ancient Emperor. This person's cultivation level is extremely high. Even I am not confident in beating him. You see, he looks like a righteous person, but he is actually cruel and merciless. He has slaughtered countless people. He is purely a madman and is a famous demon in the internal sea of devils." Wang Lin's face was gloomy. He glanced at the Ancient Emperor and then at Wang Qingyue, who was fighting with his doppelganger. Wang Lin's heart could not help but sink. The Ancient Emperor was a madman, and Wang Qingyue was a madman. Only this Duanmu Ji was considered normal. Someone else is coming. Duanmu Ji's expression changed slightly as he said in a low voice. From a horizon, a dragon boat flew over. A person stood on the dragon's head. This person was handsome, but his lips were a little thin, revealing a ruthless feeling. He had his hands behind his back, and his head was raised high. He was wearing a brocade red robe with golden threads embroidered on it. His black hair was disheveled and draped over his shoulders, fluttering with the wind. Behind him stood a person. This person was not old, about 20 years old. His appearance was ordinary, but his eyes occasionally revealed a strange red glow. When the dragon boat neared, the man in red jumped down, and the young man behind him hurriedly followed. Wang Lin sized up the man in red. This person's body was emitting a cold aura. This kind of coldness came from the bones, like a piece of ice that would not melt for a long time. After landing, The man in red's cold eyes swept the area. His eyes stopped on Wang Qingwei for a while, then he looked at Wang Lin. Finally, his gaze landed on Duanmuji. His voice was as cold as winter as he coldly said, "How lively!" Duanmuji laughed and said, "Six-desired devil lord, I haven't seen you in 1,000 years. Your cultivation has grown." After he finished speaking, his lips moved slightly as he sent a message to the man in red. The man in red listened and was startled. He immediately looked at Wang Lin. After looking at him for a while, he nodded and said, "Little brother, if you can pass the third trial, I, Su Liqing, will guarantee your safety." Just as he finished speaking, the young man's expression immediately changed. He stared at Wang Lin with an unfriendly gaze. Wang Lin clasped his hands and said, "Many thanks." The man in red nodded again. He withdrew his gaze and slowly said to Duanmuji, "Only Hunchback Meng is left. 300 years ago, I heard that he offended the rank 4 giant demon clan and was chased by the clan's 10 more demons. I don't know if he is dead or not. After rushing for a while, I finally finished writing a chapter. Today's chapter is 6,000 words. I'm really sorry, but don't worry. Adding on the 30 monthly votes, it will be 9,000 before the 14th. To be continued. Chapter 168. Even if this old hunchback dies, I'll drag the entire giant demon clan down with me. A hoarse voice slowly traveled out from the sky. As it spread out in a mighty manner, a gigantic emerald green toad, that was hundreds of feet tall, appeared in the distance. The toad landed in the distance, causing the ground to rumble. Even though it was far away, Wang Lin could still feel the ground tremble. Shortly after, the toad's hind legs pushed off the ground, and its giant body jumped into the air. It moved like lightning and disappeared into the distance. When it reappeared, it wasn't far away from the group. It descended from the sky like a small mountain. It stopped 100 feet away from Wang Lin and company and smashed into the ground. With a boom, the fog in the surroundings was lifted up and blown far away. After the fog disappeared, the giant toad was revealed. There were countless lumps on the toad's back. These lumps slowly shrank, and there were faint fluctuations of spiritual energy coming from them. The giant toad's eyes revealed a bloodthirsty gaze. There was a person sitting on top of the toad. This person was wearing a green robe and was short. His back was bulging, making him look like a hunchback. His eyes were like triangles, his chin was short, and he had a pointy mouth and monkey cheeks. His eyes flickered with a dim light, and his face was covered with abscesses that looked like toads. An unpleasant stench was emitted from those abscesses, making him look extremely ugly. He touched the abscesses on his face and laughed in a hoarse voice. "Those old bastards from the giant demon clan chased me for 300 years and were all poisoned to death by me. If it wasn't for the fact that the 1,000-year period is about to end and this place is about to open again, this old hunchback would have killed his way to the giant demon clan to get revenge." With that, he bent his body and stepped on the toad. The toad was intelligent, so it stuck out its red tongue and pointed it at the ground. The hunchback stepped on the tongue and slowly walked down. As he walked, he coughed as he slowly walked to the ground. After he landed, he casually waved his right hand, and the giant toad immediately shrank until it was the size of a palm. It jumped onto his shoulder, and its stomach quickly contracted, releasing bursts of gurgling sounds. The moment he stood there, the ground within 3 feet of him let out a sizzling sound, and strands of black gas slowly rose from the ground. Ren Lin remained calm and collected. He took a few steps back and observed with cold eyes. He knew that this person was an expert in using poison. Hence, he became even more vigilant. Six-desired devil lord Su Liqing frowned. He looked at the green, cloaked hunchback and said, "I haven't seen you in 1,000 years. Why is the smell of poison on your body getting stronger?" The old man rolled his eyes and said arrogantly, "Six Desires, old man. Other people are afraid of your Six Desires demonic technique, but I am not. 1,000 years ago, you and I were evenly matched. Do you want to fight again today?" With that said, he touched the toad on his shoulder and laughed wickedly. Six-desired devil lord coldly stared at him. Waves of chaotic spiritual energy appeared between the two of them. But soon, the two of them turned around and retracted their spiritual energy. Just at this moment, ancient emperor, who had been coldly watching from 10 feet away, slowly said, "Everyone is here." This time the old man stole the ice-wind barrier from a rank 4 cultivation country. He should be able to finish the first trial. Six Desired Devil Lord's voice was cold as he said, "I'll handle the second half of the first trial." Hunchback Meng touched the abscess on his face. With a hoarse voice, he said, "For the second trial, watch this old hunchback." Duanmuji pointed at Wang Qingwei in the distance and said, "This person is Wang Qingwei. He is an expert in the 5-element escape technique, which will be helpful to us. This little friend is an expert in the death curse technique. The third trial's divine sense attack will all depend on him." Hunchback Meng's dim eyes swept across Wang Lin's body, but he didn't say a word. Six Desired Devil Lord walked toward the transfer array. His hands formed a strange seal and shot out a few rays of light. The entire transfer array rumbled and began to crack from the inside out. Bursts of green smoke came out of the transfer array. When there was no more green smoke, the transfer array was completely broken. Immediately after, he looked at the transfer array for a while. His body immediately flickered, and he quickly walked around. With every step he took, he would leave a ray of light on the ground. As his body moved faster and faster, more and more rays of light appeared. In the end, his body seemed to become a series of afterimages. At first glance, it looked like there were countless copies of himself appearing at every corner of the transfer array. Not long after, all of the afterimages disappeared, leaving only his original body standing in the center of the transfer array. He waved his hand, and a large amount of precious materials flew out from his bag of holding. Then he spat out a purple flame from his mouth. Under the heat of the flame, all of the materials melted into a liquid. Six Desired Devil Lord's hands pointed at the transfer array, and the multicolored liquid fell into the transfer array one by one. When the last drop of liquid entered the transfer array, the entire transfer array let out a rumbling sound. At the same time, a different teleportation formation appeared in front of everyone. There were more than twice as many symbols in the teleportation formation as there were before. Apart from that, there were also 10 pillars of light that shot into the sky from the teleportation formation. Creatures that looked like wandering souls would appear from time to time in these light pillars. They would circle around the light pillars and let out soundless cries. Six Desired Devil Lord took a deep breath and shouted, "The transfer array is about to open. Quickly throw out the top quality spirit stones. According to our agreement, this time the old man will take out 4 of them." The change here attracted the attention of Wang Qingwei, who was fighting with his avatars in the gravel area. He was already at a disadvantage. The endless attacks from his avatars, coupled with the fact that they were a realm higher than him, put him in a difficult position. If he was the slightest bit careless, he would lose his life on the spot. He was forced out of the gravel area many times, but his eyes were getting brighter and brighter. After seeing the change in the teleportation formation, he hesitated for a moment, then quickly retreated and rushed out of the gravel area. In an instant, he arrived next to Duanmuji. His eyes flashed as he stared at the 4 top-quality spirit stones in the teleportation formation. Greed flashed in his eyes. After he returned, the avatars in the gravel area slowly dissipated. They turned back into gravel and slowly moved in a circle. Wang Lin was also staring at the top-quality spirit stones. His heart was pounding. He knew that the Sea of Devils was very big. If he didn't use an ancient transfer array, it would take too long to cross it. Plus, there were many dangerous places along the way. However, the only way to use an ancient transfer array was to have top-quality spirit stones. However, top-quality spirit stones were too rare. This caused the few transfer arrays that had been passed down since ancient times to be in a state of disrepair. Most of them were completely useless. At this moment, the Emperor slapped his bag of holding and took out 2 top-quality spirit stones. After looking at them for a bit, he threw them out. The 2 spirit stones flew into the 2 pillars of light and floated there motionlessly. Duanmuji clenched his teeth and took out the remaining 2 top-quality spirit stones. He looked at them with heartache before throwing them out. Of the 10 pillars of light, 8 had spirit stones floating in them. The last person was Hunchback Meng. He patted the toad on his shoulder. The toad's stomach immediately swelled up and it opened its mouth. Two beams of light came out of its mouth one after the other and entered the pillars of light. At this moment, all 10 pillars of light were filled with top-quality spirit stones. The pillars of light suddenly dimmed and the two ends disappeared. All of the spirit stones gathered on top of the pillars of light. These 10 spirit stones looked like 10 dazzling suns. They slowly fell onto the transfer array. At this moment, the transfer array immediately shook and began to slowly rotate. Six desired Devil Lord's eyes revealed a hint of excitement as he shouted, 1,000 years ago, there were nearly 100 of us that entered. We didn't even get to enter the inner area. Just the restrictions on the outside made us go through a lot of trouble. In the end, we failed at the third trial and only the 4 of us survived. After 1,000 years, our cultivation levels have increased a lot. This time, we must break the restrictions and go in. Even Ancient Emperor's eyes lit up as he stepped into the transfer array. Behind him were Hunchback Meng, Duanmu Ji, and the 3 young men that came with 6 desired Devil Lord. As for Wang Qingwei, after pondering a bit, he also entered. Wang Lin lowered his head and pondered. His eyes lit up as he walked in. The 7 of them all entered the transfer array. 6 desired Devil Lord let out a roar, and the transfer array began to move. The 10 top-quality spirit stones exploded one by one. A huge wave of spiritual energy spread out in all directions. Even the surrounding valley was turned to dust by the wave. Even the gravel field couldn't help but pause for a moment. After a long time, the wave of spiritual energy slowly dissipated. The transfer array was beyond recognition. It was broken and could no longer be used. Inside the chaotic broken stars was a plane. In the sky above the plane, there was an oval-shaped ring of light. The inside of the ring of light was completely dark, making it impossible to see what it looked like. Under this ring of light, there was a transfer array. At this moment, the transfer array flashed and 7 figures appeared. Ancient Emperor was the first to walk out. He stared at the oval-shaped ring of light with a hint of fanaticism in his eyes. He jumped up and appeared outside the ring of light. After circling around it a few times, he said, "In the past 1,000 years, there shouldn't have been anyone who came here. Our seal is still intact." With that, he stretched out his hand and waved it outside the ring of light. Sometimes, a black line would come out from the ring of light and disappear into his hand. Wang Lin could clearly feel that Duanmu, 6 desired Devil Lord, and Hunchback Meng let out a sigh of relief after hearing this. He looked around. The plain inside the chaotic broken stars was endless. The sky was dark. Wang Lin knew that this was some kind of powerful restriction. The plain was completely silent, and nothing out of the ordinary could be seen. At this moment, 6 desired Devil Lord looked at Wang Qingwei and Wang Lin and said, "Welcome to the chaotic broken stars. Regardless of whether Duanmu mentioned this place to the 2 of you, I have to emphasize it again. After passing through this oval-shaped ring of light, you will enter a mysterious space. According to the records of the inheritance items we obtained, there's the corpse of God Ji. God Ji's power comes from his body. His body is extremely large. Even the weakest ancient god's body is about the size of Suzaku. I can tell everyone that God Ji here is an adult. His body is the size of countless Suzaku. The reason why it was said that there were countless treasures here was because even if an ancient god died, his divine sense wouldn't disappear. It was just that he was in a state of deep sleep. If he could enter his body and obtain his memories, then any one of the cultivation methods stored in his memories would be an incredible, great divine ability. As for treasures, ancient gods don't use bags of holding because there is no bag of holding that can store treasures that an ancient god can use. That's why an adult ancient god stores all of their treasures in their body. If you're lucky, you can obtain them. There are also pills. The cultivation of an ancient god cannot be separated from pills. The value of the pills they consume far surpasses what we can imagine. However, they don't completely digest the pills. Instead, they store a portion in their meridians. Our goal this time is the soul transformation pill. This kind of pill can be found in the meridians of an ancient god. Wang Qingyue's eyes lit up. The corner of his mouth moved as he stared at the oval-shaped ring of light in the air and began to ponder. Hunchback Meng touched the abscess on his face and said in a hoarse voice, "Sixth Desire, Devil Lord Duanmu, there are too many people this time. If we don't break the restriction, it's fine, but if we do, how will we split the loot?" Sixth Desire Devil Lord looked at Wang Qingyue and said, "Anyone who enters will get one item each. If it is a soul transformation pill, then it will be split based on your own ability." Duanmu let out a mischievous laugh and said, "It's too early to talk about this. We can talk about it after we break the restriction." Hunchback Meng's gaze fell on a young man who came in with Sixth Desire Devil Lord. He laughed and said, "Little friend, how will you help us break the restriction?" Sixth Desire Devil Lord looked at Wang Lin and coldly said, "Same as him. Like him, he can also be used in the third realm. This person is a cultivator from the rank 3 cultivation country of India and is good at using ghostly spells. He might have an effect on the creatures in the third realm. I walked for several years before I found him. So it's like this. Hee, the third trial. Last time we were stopped at the third trial. I hope this time we can break it." Hunchback Meng let out a strange smile as his gaze swept between Wang Lin and the young man. At this moment, Ancient Emperor, who was outside the circle of light, waved his hands faster and faster. Black threads appeared like rain. His expression became more and more serious. Finally, he put his hands together and pushed forward. Suddenly, countless black threads came out from the circle of light and formed a black dragon. After letting out a roar, its body quickly shrank and landed in Ancient Emperor's palm. "Okay, enter." G Emperor took a deep breath. He slapped his bag of holding and took out 2 jade bracelets after putting the black dragon away. One of the 2 bracelets was big and the other small. The big one was slightly red and the small one was slightly gray. Holding the 2 bracelets, Ancient Emperor hesitated for a bit before stepping into the circle of light and disappearing. Sixth Desire Devil Lord's eyes narrowed. He grabbed the young man and jumped into the circle of light. Wang Qingyue licked his lips and followed. Finally, Duanmu and Hunchback Meng looked at each other before looking at Wang Lin. Without saying a word, Wang Lin flew into the air and stopped outside the circle of light. He looked back at Duanmu, stretched out his right hand, and said, "Since we are here, I hope Senior can fulfill your promise." Duanmu laughed and said, "This matter is not urgent. After I pass the third trial, I will give it to you." Wang Lin coldly looked at him and didn't say a word. Hunchback Meng looked at them for a bit and let out a mischievous laugh. He walked past Duanmu and ignored the 2 of them. Duanmu stared at Wang Lin. After pondering for a bit, he took out 2 pills and said, "Take them." After Wang Lin caught them, he carefully looked at them. It was indeed as Li Muin had described. The smaller one was the Earth Transformation Pill, and the larger one was the Soul-Forming Pill. After carefully putting them away, Wang Lin entered the circle of light without saying a word. The moment he entered, Wang Lin felt like he was passing through a thin film. The scene before him caused him to suck in a breath of cold air and freeze on the spot. This place was shockingly similar to the Nirvana world he had been in before. It was also a boundless land of black nothingness. If there was a difference, it would be that there were countless conical boulders here. These boulders were lifted by a strange power and floated in the air, slowly moving forward. Wang Lin was standing on one of the conical rocks. These 10 rocks were about 300 feet wide, and he was the only person standing on top of them. Below the rocks was an endless void of darkness. Looking around, as far as the eye could see, everyone who entered this place stood alone on one of the stones. Under Ren Lin's observation, Duanmu, Sixth Desire Devil Lord, the G Emperor, and Hunchback Meng's expressions were normal. There was no sign of panic. As for Wang Qingyue, he revealed a thoughtful expression as he stood on the edge of the boulder and looked down. The last one was the young man. He was sitting on top of the rock, staring blankly at his surroundings. His eyes were filled with shock. Wang Lin took a deep breath and spread out his divine sense. There weren't any restrictions that could block divine sense, but considering the fact that there were many powerful cultivators around, Wang Lin didn't spread his divine sense too far. He only wrapped it around the rock he was on and stopped. At this moment, Six Desired Devil Lord's voice came from the distance. There is no danger here. You just need to enter the passage. You just need to sit on the floating rock. After hearing this, Wang Lin sat down cross-legged and watched the rock he was sitting on slowly move forward. He pondered a little and found that no one was paying attention to him. He reached into his clothes and touched the bag of holding he got from the Hofen Union. His divine sense entered the bag of holding, but there was no reaction. Wang Lin was startled, but this wasn't the time to think about it. He slowly withdrew his right hand and looked around. Suddenly, Wang Qingyue, who was standing on the edge of the rock and looking down, suddenly shouted, "What is that?" Two lanterns suddenly lit up in the void below. They were about 10 feet in size. Wang Lin's divine sense spread out and his heart tightened. How were these lights? They were clearly a pair of eyes. Shortly after, the eyes disappeared, but soon reappeared. However, when they reappeared, they were even bigger. Hunchback Meng arrived at the edge of the rock and looked down with a gloomy face. He waved his right hand, and blue powder fell from his position. As the powder fell, specks of ghostly light appeared. The lower it went, the brighter the ghostly light became. When it reached the eyes, a scene that made everyone take a deep breath appeared in front of them. It was a giant snake-like creature. Its size was impossible to estimate. Just the part that the ghostly light could see was more than 10 feet wide. It was about 100 feet wide. The purplish-red scales on its body shone with a strange luster in the dim light. There were 9 long horns on its huge head and rows of sharp teeth. As they opened and closed, they emitted a frightening, cold light. Hunchback Meng's face immediately became very ugly. He quickly withdrew his right hand, and the ghostly light disappeared. The area below was once again shrouded in darkness. Hunchback Meng pondered for a bit and slowly said, "At the very least, it is a desolate beast." Hunchback Meng pondered for a bit and slowly said, "It is the same as a peak soul formation cultivator." Six Desired Devil Lord's face was gloomy as he calmly said, "Don't provoke it. The last time we came here, we were able to pass safely. This time, as long as we don't provoke it, we will be able to pass as well." As soon as he finished speaking, a deep roar came from the void below. Then, the pair of huge eyes became bigger and bigger, and a gust of fishy wind suddenly came from below. Everyone suddenly stood up. Hunchback Meng slapped his bag of holding, and a few pills appeared in his hand. He threw them and quickly said, "Keep them in your mouth to prevent poison." Six Desired Devil Lord jumped out and appeared next to the young man. He grabbed the young man's hand, took the pills, and quickly flew off into the distance. At the same time, Duamuji also looked over at Wang Lin. After seeing Wang Lin's calm expression, he hesitated a bit and sent a voice transmission saying, "Follow me." Then he quickly flew off into the distance. Wang Lin caught the pills that Hunchback Meng threw at him. He didn't immediately take them, but looked at everyone else. After seeing that everyone had taken them, he jumped out and put the pills in his mouth. Everyone quickly leaped away from the cone-shaped stones. From afar, the stones seemed to be endless, leading to an endless land. Wang Lin followed closely behind Duanmuji. The roar, coming from below, was getting more and more intense. The surrounding rocks showed signs of shaking. At the same time, a boulder not too far behind them suddenly shattered into pieces as a huge head slammed into it. As the boulder shattered, the head's eyes shone with a cold light. A fishy smell came from behind them. Wang Lin shouted for pills as he quickly jumped out with everyone else. As for the roar behind them, aside from the young man, no one looked back. They were all rushing forward at full speed. Just like that, everyone's speed was determined. The fastest was Wang Qingyue, who was famous for his 5 elements escape technique. His body was in a semi-transparent state, and unlike the other people's arc-shaped jumps, he flew in a straight line. If he encountered a rock, his body would disappear the moment he touched it, and when he reappeared, he would be on the other side. The snake-shaped desolate beast coldly stared at the people jumping in front of it. It let out a roar and suddenly raised its body, revealing its tens of thousands of feet-long body. Then it suddenly pressed down, There was still one more time before 12 o'clock. Chapter 169. To everyone, this scene was like the sky collapsing. A gust of wind suddenly descended from the sky. Without a word, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out a large amount of defensive talismans. He had a lot of these talismans. After killing people and stealing their treasures, he had obtained countless of these low-quality talismans. These talismans turned into layers of light that surrounded Wang Lin's body. He calmly dodged to the side and jumped out the moment the gust of wind descended. At the same time, Ji Emperor and Six Desire Devil Lord stopped moving. The two of them didn't waste any words. Ancient Emperor revealed a serious expression and took out a bell from his bag of holding. After the bell appeared, it immediately grew bigger and let out a series of bell chimes. Invisible ripples immediately spread out, causing the surrounding stones to shatter. The snake-like creature that descended from the sky twisted its body. Just as it turned around, it collided with the ripples. It immediately let out a roar and spat out a black mist from its mouth. This black mist was very powerful. The moment the surrounding stones touched it, they immediately turned into black dust and dissipated. Hunchback Meng was in charge of collecting the black mist the snake-like creature spat out. He touched the abscess on his face and immediately crushed one. An unbearable stench came out of the broken abscess, and a sliver of black liquid flowed out of the abscess. Hunchback Meng's body instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the black mist. His face was ferocious as he opened his mouth and inhaled. All of the black mist was sucked into his mouth. Gradually, the hump on his back grew larger. When all of the black mist was sucked in, it was as if he was carrying a small mountain on his back. He swayed as he stood on a rock to the side. His eyes flashed as he stared at the snake-like creature in silence. On his face, there was a pustule that had just been squeezed open. Wisps of black gas came out from it and were all sucked into the stomach of the toad on his shoulder. At the moment Ancient Emperor threw out the bell, Six Desire Devil Lord's hands formed a strange seal, and he muttered something. His gaze swept across the area and landed on Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he immediately retreated a few steps. He took out the nascent soul-level jade talisman without any hesitation and spat out a crystal sword. The crystal sword appeared before him and pointed at Six Desire Devil Lord. Six Desire Devil Lord's gaze paused for a moment before sweeping across the crowd. This time, his gaze landed on the young man beside him. The young man's face was filled with horror as he nervously stared at the snake-like creature. His body trembled slightly. Six Desire Devil Lord's eyes lit up, and he suddenly said one word. Gong Fan. The young man's body suddenly shook. Black gas came out from his mouth and nose and quickly condensed into a black sword that floated in front of Six Desire Devil Lord. The young man's body swayed, and he stood there in a daze. His eyes were filled with confusion. Six Desire Devil Lord's right hand pointed at the black sword, and he let out a few complex incantations. Gradually, the sword became bigger and bigger until it became a giant sword. All of this happened in a very short period of time. At this moment, the snake-like creature was about to hit the bell and spit out black gas. Six Desire Devil Lord quickly said, "Go." He swung the black sword in front of him and quickly chopped down on the snake-like creature's head. With a bang, the black sword hit the snake-like creature's head. The snake-like creature felt pain and shook its head, knocking the black sword far away. At this moment, the young man beside Six Desire Devil Lord suddenly spat out blood from his mouth and nose. His body immediately became very weak, but his eyes became even more confused. Ancient Emperor waved his right hand, and the giant bell began to spin. The sound of the bell became louder and more intense. Countless ripples spread out, one after another, toward the snake-like creature. The moment the snake-like creature knocked away the black sword, it was immediately hit by the ripples from the bell. Its body trembled, and its eyes revealed a bloodthirsty gaze. It suddenly opened its mouth, which was as big as a small mountain, and a shadow came out of it. At the same time, Ancient Emperor's expression changed, and his giant bell suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin's divine sense was locked onto the snake-like creature. He carefully watched. The moment the snake-like creature opened its mouth, another snake-like head came out. This smaller snake-like head bit the bell and suddenly retracted. Hunchback Meng's eyes suddenly lit up as he stared at the snake-like creature. He licked his lips and was about to rush out, but the snake-like creature's mouth had already closed. Hunchback Meng's abnormality was clearly seen by Wang Lin. He had been vigilant of everyone here, so of course he couldn't forget about this poison expert. It was incomparably large, far beyond what a normal person could reach. What caught his attention the most was Six Desired Devil Lord's technique. This technique required a target, and that young man was unlucky enough to be that target. At this moment, the snake-like creature was in pain and began to roar. Its body began to spin like crazy. A whirlpool quickly appeared around it, and all of the surrounding rocks were involuntarily sucked into the whirlpool. After the giant whirlpool appeared, Duan Muji and Wang Qingwei were the first to rush out. Their faces were gloomy. As for Ancient Emperor, his face was even uglier. He had already lost connection with his treasure. The whirlpool became larger and larger, and the powerful suction force forced everyone to quickly retreat. The purple sword in front of Six Desired Devil Lord emitted a demonic light. His eyes lit up and the sword immediately shot out. At the same time, the black sword that was knocked away also shot out. The two swords were extremely fast and stabbed toward the snake-like creature's eyes. The moment they touched the creature's eyes, the swords turned into gas and drilled into the creature's eyes. The snake-like creature suddenly stopped and let out a crazed roar. Its eyes flickered with red light as two streams of gas, one black and one purplish red, were forced out of its eyes. At this time, it opened its mouth again and another snake head quickly rushed out. In one breath, two streams of gas were released. At this moment, Wang Lin's eyes became cold. He had been waiting for this opportunity. He jumped in the whirlpool and his speed doubled. In the blink of an eye, he entered the snake's mouth. At the same time, a green light flashed beside him. Hunchback Meng, who had been coldly watching from afar, also had the same idea. When he saw Wang Lin, he was startled for a moment and then let out a smile of praise. It's just that this smile looks a little cruel and ignorant. Hunchback Meng's body flashed by. His target was the other snake in the snake's mouth. When Wang Lin saw this, he immediately turned around and entered the snake's mouth. His target was the creature's spine. Back then, Lim Yuan said that the most precious part of a creature like this was not its core, but its marrow. The reason Wang Lin took the risk to come here was for the marrow. From a moment he saw this snake-like creature, he had been secretly observing it. Lim Yuan had said that the marrow had many miraculous effects. One of them depended on the age of the flood dragon. If it lived to a certain age, its marrow could more or less increase its chances of forming a nascent soul. Although he didn't know if the creature in front of him was a dragon, from its appearance, even if it wasn't, it should be of the same species. If he could extract its marrow, then it should have some effect. So when the creature opened its mouth a second time, he charged in. In truth, Hunchback Meng had also entered the snake's mouth. Wang Lin had already noticed this. When the creature opened its mouth the first time, Wang Lin saw Hunchback Meng's expression from afar. As a result, he was even more determined to enter the snake's mouth. Before, he was worried that if he extracted the marrow, it would arouse suspicion. But now that Hunchback Meng had come with him, even if there was something wrong with the creature, he could blame it all on Hunchback Meng. Also, the two of them chose different directions and didn't cross paths. Hunchback Meng wouldn't notice what Wang Lin was doing, so there shouldn't be any problems. Even if someone was suspicious, they wouldn't make a move on him. After all, their goal wasn't the marrow, but the ancient god's body. Wherever Wang Lin went, the crystal flying sword in his hand flashed, but it couldn't leave a single mark on the snake. The deeper he went, the more Wang Lin's heart sank. Inside the giant snake, aside from the smaller body, there was nothing else. The walls of flesh were black and were slowly moving. Wang Lin controlled the flying sword to stab a bit, but it still couldn't leave a mark. The spine must be buried deep inside the flesh, but it couldn't hurt the snake at all. This made Wang Lin frown. His eyes lit up and he moved to the side. This time his target was the connection between the snake's head and neck. Just at this moment, the smaller part of the snake's body began to tremble. Slivers of black gas came out from under the snake's skin. Wang Lin quickly charged toward the snake's head. Soon, he arrived at the snake's head. At the connection between the snake's head and neck, there was a thin layer of red light. Wang Lin took a deep breath, and all the spiritual energy in his body surged. He slapped his bag of holding, and hundreds of flying swords appeared. He spread out his divine sense, and all of the flying swords pointed at the thin layer of red light. Chapter 170. After a series of explosions, all of the flying swords pointed at one point and stabbed into the thin membrane. The membrane shook violently and was gradually blocked by the flying swords. A dent appeared on the membrane. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and the crystal flying swords flew out and stabbed into the dent. Soon, the dent became deeper and deeper. At this moment, the snake-like creature noticed something was wrong and began to writhe. Wang Lin became very anxious. He waved his hand, and the hundreds of flying swords began to attack again. Finally, with a bang, the membrane broke and a thick, fishy smell came out. Wang Lin moved his body close to the meat wall and held his breath. The pill in his mouth immediately took effect and blocked out the fishy smell. After the fishy smell disappeared, Wang Lin immediately charged in. The snake body had already withered. Wang Lin had a feeling that this giant snake wouldn't be killed so easily. If there was a small snake inside the giant snake, then could there be another snake inside the small snake? More importantly, Hunchback Meng said that this snake-like creature was a desolate beast, equivalent to someone at the peak of the late stage of soul formation. It has to be said that someone at the peak of the late stage of soul formation is the strongest person in a rank 4 cultivation country. Unless the G Emperor and company were also at the peak of the soul formation stage. But according to what Hunchback Meng said, Wang Lin didn't think they were at the peak of the soul formation stage. At most, they were at the mid-stage of the soul formation stage. As a result, there was no way to fight. They could only run for their lives. Originally, Wang Lin wanted to do this, but after looking at it for a while, he found that aside from its thick skin and the fact that it could spit out poison gas, it didn't seem to have any other abilities. This made him very surprised. He looked at the people around him and found that although none of these old fellows spoke, there were hints of doubt in their eyes. Wang Lin had a bold guess in his heart. This creature only had the body of a desolate beast, but it didn't have the abilities of a desolate beast at the peak of the soul formation stage. This guess reached its peak when another snake head emerged from the snake's mouth. It was because of this guess that he finally made up his mind to extract the marrow from the desolate beast's mouth. From his point of view, this desolate beast was just a facade. If they were inside, there would definitely be no danger. There was even a strange thought that surfaced in Wang Lin's mind. Could this desolate beast be a strange creature? It was a type of snake that had small snakes within it, and small snakes within small snakes, until the final tiny snake that was hidden within an unknown number of snakes was the true desolate beast. As for the physical bodies on the outside, they were just decorations for it to hide itself. That was why it only had the body of a dire beast, but no powers of a dire beast. Thinking about this, Wang Lin's heart skipped a beat. He quickly arrived at the place where the snake's head and neck connected. There was no thin membrane here, so half of the white bone could be seen. Wang Lin's right hand pressed down on the bone without any hesitation. Under the control of the attraction force technique, the snake's body shook and began to roll around. At the same time, there was a flash of black light from the snake's head, and the skin quickly melted. Hunchback Meng's face was filled with terror as he jumped out. He was in a sorry state as he quickly flew toward the snake's head at an extremely fast speed. When he passed by the snake's head and neck, he immediately saw Wang Lin. After hesitating for a bit, he quickly shouted, "Quickly go! This is a parasitic dragon. There are a total of 9 snakes inside its body, and the innermost one is its main body. It has the power of a desolate beast." With that, he hit the wall of flesh with his right hand. The wall of flesh that couldn't be damaged by a flying sword suddenly turned black. The snake felt pain and opened its mouth. Hunchback Ming immediately charged out. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Not only did he not leave, but he stuck close to the wall of flesh and hid himself. Just at this moment, a small red dragon charged out from the dried-up snake's body. Its body flashed like lightning as it chased after Hunchback Ming. Wang Lin stuck close to the wall of flesh and didn't move. After Hunchback Ming and the dragon flew far away, his eyes lit up. Hunchback Ming didn't have good intentions. He told Wang Lin all this while he was escaping. He must have wanted Wang Lin to leave with him to divert the attention of the dragon. Wang Lin sneered in his heart. He didn't want to get involved with these people. If he opened the third trial, it would be fine, but he knew that he didn't know any death spell. If he didn't open the third trial, these demonic cultivators would definitely kill him to vent their anger. And even if he did open the third trial, he would no longer have any value. Even if he didn't get killed immediately, he would definitely become the target of 6 Desire Devil Lord's demonic attack. Wang Lin clearly remembered the confusion of young people. Originally, Wang Lin planned to find an opportunity to leave in the first 2 floors. If he didn't find an opportunity, then he would cause a ruckus in the 3rd floor. Then everyone would escape together and wouldn't have time to keep an eye on him. But now Wang Lin changed his mind. Since the red dragon had already chased him, the snake's body should be the safest place. His eyes lit up and his right hand sucked hard on the snake's spine. The giant snake suddenly shook. Wang Lin felt his blood rush up and his body involuntarily flew up. His face was gloomy. He circulated the spiritual energy in his body and stabilized his body. The feeling of blood rushing up continued. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and looked through the gap between the snake's teeth. When he saw what it was, he was stunned. The giant snake-like creature's body was descending at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it had sunk into the dark void. After about half an hour, the speed of its descent slowed down. Finally, the snake's body shook and a muffled roar came from outside. After a long time, everything became silent. Wang Lin took a deep breath and continued to absorb the bone marrow without a word. At this moment, the giant snake was no longer trembling, and there was nothing abnormal. Gradually, a drop of golden liquid floated out of the spine, and a faint fragrance came out. Wang Lin's expression was serious. He slapped his bag of holding, and a jade bottle flew out. After carefully putting the golden liquid into the jade bottle, Wang Lin let out a deep breath. He put the bottle into his bag of holding and immediately flew toward the snake's mouth. From the gap between the snake's teeth, Wang Lin flashed out. In front of him was darkness without any light. Wang Lin's hands formed a seal, and he shouted, "Go!" Suddenly, a head-sized fireball silently appeared in front of him and floated forward. Using the fireball's light, Wang Lin looked around. Gradually, his expression became strange. To be more accurate, this was also a rock floating in the void. However, this rock was hundreds of times bigger than where he was before. The giant snake-like creature's head was resting on the rock, and its body was hanging down. It was unknown where it had extended to. This snake-like creature's eyes were closed, and there was no aura coming from it. Wang Lin carefully looked at it and analyzed it. This snake-like creature must have lost its vitality because the red dragon left its body. It was like a cultivator's nascent soul leaving their body, so it temporarily lost its vitality and fell down. This also explained why the creature didn't move when he extracted the marrow. Wang Lin looked at the giant snake. His eyes lit up a bit, and he let out a sigh. He finally gave up on his plan. The giant snake, lying, there was like a mountain of treasure in front of him. Just its brain and snake skin were priceless. But Wang Lin didn't let these things get to his head. Not to mention whether or not he could pierce through the shell of the snake's brain and remove its skin. The red dragon could return at any time. If it were to hit Wang Lin, then even if Wang Lin had 100 lives, he would still die in an instant. Wang Lin looked at it again and took out the pill Hunchback Ming gave him. The pill had already shrunk by half, but Wang Lin still carefully placed it in his bag of holding. Without a word, he put out the fireball and jumped into the air. In this dark void, the firelight was simply too bright. For safety's sake, Wang Lin could only fly in the dark. Gradually, his eyes got used to the darkness. Although he couldn't see everything around him clearly, he could at least make out some of the outlines. Aside from the fact that the rocks were 100 times larger, this place was pretty much the same as the one above. However, the speed at which the rocks were moving was a bit faster. Apart from that, a sense of danger was constantly coming from all directions. Wang Lin was very careful and slowed down. Every time he moved a few dozen feet, he would carefully observe his surroundings before moving again. At this moment, he had just landed on a rock when his body suddenly froze. In front of him, a black shadow flashed by. Wang Lin held his breath. His body didn't move as he stared ahead. He gradually saw the outline. At the center of the rock, there was a black shadow. This black shadow was about 1,000 feet wide and had countless tentacles on its body. These tentacles were very long and were swaying without any pattern. The black shadow that flashed by was one of the tentacles. After Wang Lin saw it clearly, he backed up a bit. For this strange creature to be able to survive here, it must be very powerful and not something he could provoke. After slowly backing up a few dozen feet, he had already backed up to the edge of the rock. Wang Lin stared at the creature. Then he suddenly backed up and flew into the distance. It wasn't until he was several thousand feet away that Wang Lin took a deep breath. He looked up at the endless void and couldn't help but wryly smile. Only by going to those stones from before would he be able to find the ring of light that would lead him out. Wang Lin pondered a bit. He didn't dare to spread out his divine sense too far. Otherwise, if he provoked a powerful creature, he would be in danger. He slowly flew up and saw a large black shadow above him. He quickly stopped and looked at it for a long time. After confirming that it was a conical rock, he slowly flew closer. But just at this moment, a red light suddenly appeared from above. It let out a strange whistling sound as it quickly charged down. Wang Lin's body immediately flashed. He stuck close to the conical rock and remained motionless. The red light flashed past the rock and disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin's scalp went numb. In that split second, he vaguely saw that the red light was the dragon that flew out of the snake-like creature to chase after Hunchback Meng. Now that the dragon had returned, he didn't know if Hunchback Meng and company were dead or alive. Wang Lin sneered. He left the rock and slowly flew up. After flipping over the rock, he carefully observed his surroundings. This was a rock with no living creatures. After carefully observing for a long time, Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief. He sat down cross-legged, drank a mouthful of spirit liquid, and carefully looked down. Once the red dragon returned to its body, it would definitely notice something was wrong. Wang Lin pondered a bit, and then immediately sank into the rock. He hit his forehead, and the heaven-defying bead appeared. His eyes lit up, and he immediately entered the heaven-defying bead space. Not long after he entered the heaven-defying bead space, an angry roar came from the depths below. The red dragon immediately flew out like lightning and smashed several thousand feet of rocks. Its eyes were cold, and its body flashed as it searched the surroundings. This dragon already had a certain level of intelligence. It knew that the person who killed it hadn't gone far, so it ferociously searched the area. After a long time, without finding anything, the dragon let out a few more roars and unwillingly lay down on top of a rock. It slowly calmed down, but soon it charged out toward the black shadow with countless tentacles that Wang Lin saw on top of a rock. The moment the dragon charged at it, the tentacles quickly moved and tangled together to form a cone. It faced the red dragon without any fear. Bursts of explosions came from below. At the same time, there were flashes of light and powerful waves of spiritual energy swept the area like a hurricane. The rocks shattered one by one. Even the rock Wang Lin was on was affected. Almost half of it was destroyed. This battle lasted for about a day before it slowly calmed down. The black shadow that had been enraged by the flood dragon was finally defeated. As for the flood dragon, it was also heavily injured. After roaring a few times, it finally calmed down. 10 days later, Wang Lin left the heaven-defying bead space. His body flashed, and he appeared on top of a rock. The moment he appeared, he immediately spread out his divine sense and carefully observed the surroundings. There were obviously fewer rocks around, but there were more small pieces of gravel. After a long time, Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief. After pondering for a while, he immediately flew up. After flying past a few rocks, Wang Lin suddenly stopped and stared in front of him. Just a moment ago, he saw a piece of gravel suddenly disappear in front of him. Wang Lin's expression was serious as he slowly retreated. At the same time, he waved his right hand, and a few pieces of gravel immediately flew over. Wang Lin pointed to the front and whispered, "Go!" The gravel immediately flew forward. This time, Wang Lin stared in front of him and saw that the gravel didn't fly far before it suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He clearly saw that the place where the gravel disappeared suddenly split open. Because the speed was too fast and his vision wasn't clear, it looked like half of the gravel had suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin silently stared in front of him. He slapped his bag of holding, and a flying sword appeared in front of his chest. His right hand touched the sword, and it immediately flew forward. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the place where the gravel disappeared. Suddenly, the black hole appeared again. The moment the flying sword appeared, Wang Lin's right hand suddenly formed a seal, and he shouted, "Break!" The flying sword let out a bang and shattered into pieces. The moment the black hole closed, the flying sword shot out in all directions. Wang Lin's eyes were fixed on the flying sword as he waved his right hand. One of the pieces changed direction and returned to his hand. Wang Lin stared at the few drops of black liquid left on the flying sword fragment. Around the black liquid, the flying sword fragment had traces of decay. "It's not a spatial rift," Wang Lin immediately confirmed. The reason he had been so cautious and tested so many times was because he was worried that there might be a spatial rift here. If there really was a spatial rift, then the danger level of this place would increase by another level. After all, Wang Lin was no longer a fragrant soul, but a fleshly body. If a spatial rift tore through it, everything would be destroyed. Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief. He spread out his hands and waved them. Immediately, all of the surrounding gravel gathered around him, forming a ring of gravel around him. He flew horizontally for a long distance before continuing forward. Along the way, as long as the gravel disappeared, he would immediately change directions. Gradually, Wang Lin was able to confirm that the existence that was devouring the gravel like a spatial rift was actually a strange creature that couldn't be seen with the naked eye. This creature's body structure was extremely strange. Even divine sense couldn't detect any clues about it. Wang Lin had only been able to come to this conclusion based on his years as a fragrant soul in the outer realms and his understanding of spatial rifts. Along the way, Wang Lin was extremely careful. This place was filled with danger, and the slightest mistake could lead to his death. To a core formation cultivator like him, this was no different from a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. The slightest mistake could lead to death. After so much time had passed, Wang Lin calculated that he had traveled less than 500 kilometers. Normally, he would have been able to travel this distance in a flash. But now, it had taken him several days. Wang Lin had no way of calculating how many days it had taken him. All of his energy was focused on being on high alert. Time slowly passed. Wang Lin didn't even know how long he had been flying. He had been on high alert for a long time, allowing him to narrowly escape danger after danger. On this day, Wang Lin rested on top of a rock. He didn't use much spiritual energy, but his mind was extremely tired. Luckily, before Wang Lin entered this place, he was used to being cautious. Otherwise, if it was anyone else, they would have been tortured to the point of exhaustion and died. After resting for a while, Wang Lin took a deep breath and stood up. His right hand pointed in the air a few times, and a crystal flying sword appeared. It circled around the rock like crazy. Gradually, large pieces of gravel were cut off and floated in all directions. Wang Lin stretched out his hands, and the gravel immediately condensed. These past few days, Wang Lin had been using gravel to clear a path. Every time he ran out of gravel, he would cut some of it off. After the gravel formed a ring, Wang Lin immediately jumped forward and slowly flew forward. Gradually, after he flew a certain distance, Wang Lin frowned. His body stopped in the air, and his eyes flashed as he observed his surroundings. The darkness here had dissipated a lot. The higher he went, the more light he could see from all directions. As for where this light came from, Wang Lin didn't have time to care. He was staring at his surroundings and had a bad feeling. His eyes had already completely adapted to the darkness. In addition to the slightly glossy environment, he could basically see everything clearly. He did a rough calculation and found that there was only one rock floating in the air within a radius of 10,000 miles. All of this didn't make sense. In Wang Lin's experience, these pieces of gravel would often appear every few miles. Even if the stone was broken, there would still be some gravel and dust. But here, there was not the slightest bit of it. There were only two explanations for this. First, an intense battle had just taken place here, causing the hurricane to surge. Apart from that one, all the rocks were blown far away. That was why there was such a scene. The second reason was that there were countless creatures that resembled spatial rifts here, and they devoured all of the stones over the years, leaving nothing behind. Wang Lin had evidence for this. He had personally seen a giant conical stone being devoured by a large mouth. In just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the conical stone had disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin hesitated for a bit. If this was really the case, then he had to go around. Otherwise, once he entered, he would immediately be in danger. After pondering for a bit, Wang Lin pointed at a piece of gravel in front of him. The gravel slowly floated forward and soon entered it. It floated far away and didn't disappear. Wang Lin muttered to himself for a bit. Then he pointed at the surrounding gravel a few times. Suddenly, all of the surrounding gravel began to move forward. Wang Lin wasn't in a rush. He quietly stood in place, watching the gravel slowly move forward. After a long time, the gravel arrived near the only giant stone in the surrounding 5,000 miles. Near that stone, one of the gravel suddenly disappeared. Wang Lin's pupil shrank as he stared closely. A moment later, another gravel disappeared. Soon, more and more gravel disappeared. Finally, when they passed by the giant stone, all of the gravel had disappeared. Wang Lin's eyes flashed as he committed those points to memory. Based on his experience over the past few days, Wang Lin knew that these spatial rift-like creatures couldn't move. It was as if they could only stay in a fixed position. However, that didn't rule out the possibility that they could move. Wang Lin pondered for a long time before giving up on entering. This place was too strange. He would rather spend more time to go around than take the risk of entering. After all, the price of failure was something he couldn't afford. After making up his mind, Wang Lin retreated. He once again used a crystal flying sword to cut off a large amount of gravel. After forming a circle around him, he flew off to the side. Gradually, Wang Lin's expression became even more gloomy. He had already flown far away, but this empty space seemed to be endless, as if there was no boundary at all. If this empty space was like a white belt, then it was like it could pass through the void. After flying for a few days, Wang Lin had no choice but to give up on going around it. Chapter 171. Obviously, he couldn't go around it. If he wanted to leave this place, he could only force his way through. Wang Lin sighed. He pointed at the flying sword with his right hand. The flying sword flashed and retreated, cutting off a piece of rock behind Wang Lin. Slowly, more and more rocks appeared and were pulled by Wang Lin into the ring of rocks. Gradually, more and more rocks appeared around him. There were already 5 or 6 rings of rocks around him. He calculated in his mind and then put away the crystal light flying sword. Along with the large group of rocks, Wang Lin suddenly rushed into the empty area. After entering, his speed slowed down and he moved forward. Along the way, it was calm and there was no danger at all. However, Wang Lin's vigilance didn't decrease at all. Instead, it increased a lot. After staying in this strange place for a long time, Wang Lin didn't believe that there was such a safe and calm place. On the contrary, He was more inclined to believe that there was a huge creature here, which was why it created a false safety zone. He was completely focused. The crystal light flying sword flashed in the midst of the rocks. He held the nascent soul-level jade talisman in his hand. His divine sense spread out in all directions. There was even a strand of his divine sense connected to his bag of holding. This was to ensure that if there was any movement, he could immediately take out the items inside. Gradually, he arrived in the middle of the empty area. If he looked horizontally, he would find that there was a straight line between this location and the place where the rocks disappeared. Wang Lin became even more cautious. After taking a few steps forward, he suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. Without any hesitation, he quickly retreated. At the same time, the nascent soul-level jade talisman in his hand immediately opened up a light barrier. At the instant he retreated, two arcs appeared where he had been. The two arcs were intersecting with each other like a huge mouth opening wide. The nascent soul-level jade talisman trembled and turned into dust in Wang Lin's hand. Taking this opportunity, Wang Lin immediately retreated. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead as he stared at the slowly closing mouth. His heart violently trembled. This creature, which was similar to a spatial rift, did not open when the rocks passed by. Instead, it waited for him to close in before suddenly opening it. It seemed that its target was him. Wang Lin was silent for a moment as he looked off into the distance. He couldn't help but feel bitterness in his heart. He only had one nascent soul magical treasure, and it had been destroyed by the creature's mouth. From this, it could be seen that the power contained in the creature's mouth exceeded that of a nascent soul cultivator's attack. In this way, even if Wang Lin was touched, he would definitely be injured if not dead. He took a deep breath, and after a moment of silence, he took out a large number of defensive magic treasures from his storage pouch without the slightest hesitation. These were the spoils of war he obtained when he killed people. However, they were all low-grade magic treasures, and he kept them as consumables. After hesitating for a moment, Wang Lin controlled the rock to fly forward. This time, he was even more careful. He spread out his divine sense. If he felt something was wrong, he would retreat without hesitation. Suddenly, more than half of the rock in front of him disappeared, and a 30-meter wide semicircle appeared. Wang Lin immediately retreated, but soon, more than half of the rock behind him disappeared. Moreover, they disappeared from several locations at the same time. This meant that whether it was in front of him or behind him, there were spatial rift creatures appearing. Wang Lin immediately dodged to the side, but shortly after, the hundreds of defensive magic treasures around him suddenly let out crackling sounds and shattered at an extremely fast speed. Wang Lin's expression was filled with horror. His body immediately hugged into a ball and quickly slid to the side, dodging the danger again and again. He stood 100 meters away, and his clothes were already soaked in sweat. There were at least 7 spatial rift creatures opening their mouths at the same time. If it wasn't for the delay of the magic treasures, he would already be dead. Wang Lin bitterly smiled. The rocks around him had all been burned away. Although he still had some defensive magic treasures, they would all be used up after a few crises like this. Most importantly, Wang Lin was a bit worried that if the spatial rift creatures appeared around him at the same time, he would be dead without a way out. He let out a sigh and took out some more defensive magic treasures. After activating them, he spread out his divine sense and cautiously walked forward. He looked at the border in the distance. If he flew at full speed, it would only take him a moment to reach this distance. However, Wang Lin knew that if he flew at full speed, he would very likely run into the mouth of the creature. At that time, he would really be walking into a trap, and even a god wouldn't be able to save him. After taking a deep breath, Wang Lin clenched his teeth and continued to fly forward. His speed was slow, and his divine sense was locked onto the surroundings. Time slowly passed. 3 days later, Wang Lin was exhausted. All of the defensive magic treasures in his bag of holding had been used up. In these 3 days, he had experienced several life and death crises. One time, half of his body was even cut off, If he hadn't immediately entered the heaven-defying bead space, he would have died at that time. Fortunately, the heaven-defying bead space was not destroyed by the incense. After he walked out, he was still in this empty space. However, Wang Lin didn't dare to enter the heaven-defying bead space. If he entered the heaven-defying bead space and was swallowed by the creature, even if he didn't die at the time, it would be difficult for him to escape death after coming out. Seeing that there was less than 10 miles in front of him, Wang Lin took a deep breath and flew forward. Suddenly, an arc-shaped crack appeared in front of him. Wang Lin's body was about to dodge, but his divine sense immediately sent a strong sense of crisis. The scene that he was most worried about had appeared. All around his body, arc-shaped cracks appeared. These cracks quickly widened. Wang Lin's eyes revealed a look of unwillingness. His divine sense frantically swept through the bag of holding and suddenly locked onto an ordinary jade slip. This was the defensive array that Li Muan gave him when they parted. Wang Lin didn't hesitate and quickly took out the jade slip. He had already made up his mind that if the situation was not good, he could only enter the heaven-defying bead space. Even if he had to be destroyed by the incense, he had no other choice. The moment the jade slip was taken out, the cracks around it opened to the maximum and swallowed. But at this moment, a ring of cyan light suddenly appeared around Wang Lin's body and then suddenly spread out. At the same time, a huge cyan dragon shadow suddenly appeared from the jade slip. The moment the cyan dragon appeared, the cracks around the ring of light began to swallow one by one. As the ring of light continued to shake, the cyan dragon quickly swam over and circled around Wang Lin's body. Wang Lin's body jumped out and forcibly rushed out through two of the cracks. During this process, the cyan dragon let out a series of roars, and its shadow gradually dimmed. This time, Wang Lin directly rushed out for more than 10 miles. Along the way, there were cracks everywhere, but every time it touched Wang Lin, it was blocked by the rapidly rotating cyan dragon. After completely leaving the empty space, the cyan dragon shadow was already on the verge of collapsing. Without a word, Wang Lin quickly formed a few seals. The cyan dragon gradually turned into a cloud of cyan smoke and quickly condensed back into the jade slip. There was a cracking sound on the jade slip, and a small crack appeared. Wang Lin's heart ached. He scanned it with his divine sense and found that it wasn't broken. He let out a sigh of relief and carefully put the jade slip back into his bag of holding. He looked back at the empty space, and his heart was still a bit cold. After a moment of silence, he looked up and gently stepped on a cone-shaped stone. The stone suddenly trembled and separated into countless pieces. These pieces were guided by Wang Lin to form a ring again and followed Wang Lin up. After a few days, Wang Lin's speed became faster and faster. Ever since he left the strange and terrifying empty space, it was as if he had entered another space. He didn't find a single creature. In addition, he didn't even encounter a creature as powerful as a flood dragon. It wasn't like the empty space below, where he could sense the aura of such creatures every few steps. As a result, his speed naturally increased. However, Wang Lin didn't remove the stones around him. It was better to be safe than sorry. With Wang Lin's cautiousness, unless he was absolutely sure, he wouldn't throw away the stones as a warning. With his speed increasing, his travel time was shortened. Gradually, Wang Lin noticed that the size of the cone-shaped stones around him was about the same as when he first entered this place. This empty space was too big. Wang Lin didn't think he could easily find his original location, so he could only compare the size of the cone-shaped stones to determine where he was. On this day, he stood on a conical stone. His eyes flashed as he looked up. In this group of stones of similar size, he had already flown horizontally for a very, very long time. Finally, he found the circle of light that he had entered before. In the void above him, there was a huge ring of light floating in the void. Although it would be a pity not to pass the trials, and if he could pass the 4 trials, he could enter the ancient god's body. There must be something he needed inside. However, after experiencing the dangers here, Wang Lin knew that with his cultivation, he wouldn't be able to survive here. He sighed inwardly and leaped up, flying towards the ring of light. However, the moment he touched the ring of light, bolts of purple lightning suddenly appeared within the ring of light. These bolts of lightning intertwined in front of him, forming a concave diamond pattern. Wang Lin was startled. His body couldn't move forward. It was as if there was a powerful force blocking his path. His eyes flashed as he stared at the diamond-shaped indentation. His heart sank. This indentation was just big enough to fit a top-quality spirit stone. Wang Lin's body immediately retreated. After retreating a few feet, the diamond-shaped indentation turned into purple lightning again and disappeared inside the ring of light. He repeated this again and again. Every time the diamond-shaped indentation would appear, Wang Lin became silent. His eyes flashed as he looked at it for a while. Then, he suddenly turned around and flew up. He remembered that 6 Desire Devil Lord said that this was the passage to the first trial. As long as he sat on the stone and followed the direction the stone moved, he would be able to pass. Chapter 172. He had been here for a long time. The direction the cones moved was a vortex. Wang Lin flew all the way up, and after half a month he arrived at the top of the cones. This was the final destination of the conical rocks. A boundless vortex had appeared in the void, and all the conical rocks had sunk into it, slowly disappearing within. Wang Lin looked at the vortex and was silent for a moment. His right hand formed a seal, and a flying sword flew out from his bag of holding. It floated in front of Wang Lin. He sent out his divine sense and placed a seal on the flying sword. Then he threw the flying sword toward the vortex. Wang Lin slightly closed his eyes. The divine sense he sent out quickly closed in on the vortex with the flying sword. Without any hesitation, he charged into the vortex. The moment the flying sword entered, it paused for a moment as if it was sinking into mud. After a while, it slowly passed through and flew out the other side. What appeared before Wang Lin was a shiny world. The ground was covered in a thick layer of ice, and the sky was dark, but there was still light shining through. When the light shined on the ice, it was immediately reflected off the ice. A gentle wind blew, circling the ice a few times before drifting off into the distance. From a distance, this place seemed endless, but every certain distance, there would be a black tower. The closest black tower was less than 100 feet tall, but the further one went, the taller the black tower became. Wang Lin's divine sense could see that the furthest black tower was more than 400 feet tall. These black towers were connected in a straight line. As they increased in height, it gave off a very spectacular feeling. This was especially true for Heipei. Its entire body was made of black mountain rocks. Even if the light reflected off the ice on the ground landed on it, it would be absorbed by it without any reflection. The flying sword stayed there for a moment before returning to Wang Lin's hand. Outside the huge whirlpool, Wang Lin opened his eyes. He withdrew his divine sense from the flying sword and put it back into his bag of holding. After a moment of silence, he took out the dragon tendon and shook it. The devil immediately flew out. It looked at Wang Lin excitedly and shouted, "Who do you want to kill this time?" Where's this place?" The demon was excited, but when he looked around, he was stunned. It quickly circled the area, then looked at the huge whirlpool, then looked at Wang Lin, rubbed its hands, and said tentatively, "You don't want me to come in here, do you?" "No, absolutely not." Wang Lin didn't say a word. He pointed at the whirlpool and stared coldly at the demon. This place was fraught with danger. If he didn't test it multiple times, Wang Lin wouldn't recklessly charge in. The demon had a bitter expression and firmly said, "Who knows what is inside? This damn place gives me a very strange feeling. I'm not going, I definitely won't go." Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding, and a few soul flags flew out. These were all things that he had obtained from others. Wang Lin took out one of them and looked at it for a while. His right hand suddenly reached out and took out Sang Muya's soul. That day in the Sea of Devils, Wang Lin met Sang Muya, who killed his senior brother and stole his foundation. After asking for the answers he needed, he casually took out Sang Muya's soul and sealed it in a soul flag that Sang Muya had refined himself. A faint white light flickered in Wang Lin's hand. Within it was Sang Muya's terrified face. Wang Lin waved his right hand, and the white light flew toward the demon. The demon licked his lips and revealed a greedy expression. Without saying a word, he opened his mouth and swallowed it. After rubbing his stomach, he shook his head like a rattle drum and said, I'm not going. A cold light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes, and his G-realm divine sense suddenly leaped out. The demon immediately let out a miserable scream, and green smoke appeared on his body again. After a series of howls, he quickly begged for mercy and reluctantly flew toward the whirlpool. Relying on the divine sense he left in the demon's body, the moment he entered the whirlpool, Wang Lin once again saw the scene behind the whirlpool. However, his expression immediately changed. This time, behind the whirlpool wasn't a world of glaciers, but a sea of fire. This was indeed a sea of fire, and it was similarly boundless. The color of the flames became darker the further they went. From afar, it was as if the black flames were monstrous and the entire sky was burned purple. Waves of high temperature hit him in the face. Other than that, there were also countless strange beasts formed by the flames that flashed through the flames. In this sea of fire, it was like a world of glaciers. There were also black pagodas that increased in height, forming a vertical line that one couldn't see the end of. The demon let out a strange cry, as if he was extremely afraid of this wave of fire. He quickly retreated from the whirlpool. Wang Lin was silent for a while. He stared at the whirlpool, his eyes flashing. He pointed at the demon with his right hand, and the demon immediately cried out, "Give me another soul." Wang Lin looked at him and took out another soul from the soul flag. He threw it out. After the demon was done, he revealed a heroic expression and rushed into the whirlpool again. This time, the world inside the whirlpool changed again. It was a desert, and there were countless huge cacti in the desert. In the distance, there were rows of gray tornadoes slowly moving. Just like the previous two worlds, there were rows of black pagodas that stretched into the distance. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. The next few experiments were a mountain of blades and a forest of giant trees. If they were combined, it would be a land of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Wang Lin suddenly understood why Duanmu Ji had gone to find Wang Qingyue. With Wang Qingyue's 5-element art with him around, whether it was a glacier, a sea of flames, a desert, a mountain of blades, or a forest, he could easily pass through any place. If Wang Lin had to choose a land of the 5 elements, he would naturally choose a desert. After all, his earth movement art would be of great help in passing through this place. Wang Lin thought for a while before his body floated down and landed on a rock to the side. The rock slowly moved to the whirlpool, and he glanced at the demon. The demon sighed and obediently went in first. Not long after, just as the rock was about to sink into the whirlpool, Wang Lin immediately moved back and stood on another rock. The demon came out of the whirlpool and went back in with a sad expression. This cycle continued until the 4th time the demon went in. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he charged in without a word. As far as the eye could see, there was only an endless yellow desert. Waves of violent desert wind howled as it blew. In the distant horizon, there were countless black hurricanes slowly moving. The hurricanes were majestic, connecting the sky and the earth. They were endless and mighty. It was not an exaggeration to say that they covered the sky and the earth. What came with the wind was the sand that was kicked up by the hurricanes. When the wind hit people, it was very powerful. Wang Lin put away the devil and squatted down. He touched the sand under his feet and took a step forward. He used the earth escape technique and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already 1,000 feet away. 1,000 feet away was the first black tower of the earth element. Wang Lin walked into the tower, and the howling wind disappeared. The surroundings returned to normal. After carefully observing the tower, Wang Lin's eyes became serious. There were 3 floors in the black tower. The first 2 floors didn't have any decorations. Only the 3rd floor had a table covered in a thick layer of dust. Wang Lin looked around and was about to go down when he suddenly stopped. He stared at the table and his eyes flashed. Just now, when he glanced sideways, he vaguely saw a spot in the middle of the dust on the table. The height of the dust was slightly different. He went forward to take a closer look and immediately waved his right hand. A gust of wind swept past, blowing away a layer of dust on the table. At this moment, a row of blurry words appeared on the table. Wang Lin didn't say anything. He waved his hand again, and the cool breeze swept away the words a few times. The words on the table gradually became clear. This handwriting was obviously written on the table by someone else, and then the dust accumulated over the years, gradually covering the handwriting. I entered this place and left my words as a mark. These words were bold and powerful. There was an indescribable aura coming from them. He quietly looked for a while, then turned around and left the Black Tower. The instant he walked out of the Black Tower, the whimpering and roaring wind once again resounded. Sand danced in the air, covering the sky and covering the sun, causing the entire sky to darken. Wang Lin could only use the earth movement art to move underground. He didn't dare to fly. If there was a powerful restriction in the air, then flying would only result in death. He pondered for a while and slapped his storage bag. He took out a flying sword and threw it into the air. The flying sword immediately flew up. When it flew more than 1,000 feet, a hurricane suddenly fell from the sky. The flying sword was immediately sucked into the hurricane and turned into dust in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin's expression was normal. He had already expected this. This flying sword was just a test. He estimated that this place was about 50 kilometers away from the next Black Pagoda. After pondering for a moment, he took a step forward, sinking into the ground once more and continuing onward. This time, Wang Lin clearly felt that there was a layer of resistance below the desert that prevented him from using the Earth escape technique. However, this resistance wasn't strong, so Wang Lin only needed to use the spiritual energy in his body to endure it. The 50-kilometer distance was quickly crossed. Wang Lin searched inside the second Black Tower and didn't find anything. There was one thing he wasn't sure about, and that was whether or not Ancient Emperor and the others also passed through the Scholar's Path. However, according to what they said before, especially when they mentioned the Ice Wind Shield, it was clear that they planned to pass through the Glacier Path. At this moment, tens of thousands of kilometers away from Wang Lin, Hunchback Meng was standing inside a tall black tower with a gloomy expression. He looked out and saw countless tornadoes surrounding the tower. The sound of the tornadoes was like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. He was in a very sorry state right now. Even the toad on his shoulder was very dispirited. It was hanging its head and letting out weak, gurgling sounds. He rubbed the toad. His heart was filled with hatred. A few months ago, he, Sixth Desire Devil Lord, and the others were being chased by the Red Dragon. None of them were a match for the desolate beast. Even if they worked together, it would be useless. In the end, they could only escape on their own. Everyone's goal was the whirlpool at the top of the tunnel. Only by entering the whirlpool and entering the first trial would they be safe. However, the Red Dragon was chasing them relentlessly. As a result, everyone's plans were completely ruined. Originally, they were going to enter the first trial together and use everyone's strength to get through it. This way, the difficulty of the first trial would be much lower, and they wouldn't need to waste too much spiritual energy. They could save their strength for the second trial. It was a pity that the Red Serpent Dragon was too powerful, and its divine abilities were too difficult for them to deal with. They could only flee quickly. Thus, no one dared to stay in the vortex at the top, and they all charged in one by one. As a result, everyone who entered faced a different environment. Hunchback Meng entered the Earth Elemental Land. The moment he saw the desert, his heart sank. According to their original plan, they were going to enter the Water Elemental Land, which was the world of glaciers. Last time, they lost countless people there before they passed. Although it was dangerous, the four of them had experienced it before. Adding on the fact that they all had treasures that could counter this place, they were confident they would be able to pass safely. But this Earth Elemental Land was something Hunchback Meng had never experienced before. As a result, he could only brace himself and move forward. The first 10,000 kilometers were safe, but after 10,000 kilometers, the black tornadoes closed in. There were strange creatures inside the black tornadoes. These creatures relied on sound to attack, making it very difficult to defend against them. Originally, there weren't many of these creatures, so Hunchback Meng used his poison technique to kill them one by one. However, he didn't expect more and more creatures to appear. In the previous battle, there were no less than tens of thousands of creatures that roared in unison. However, Hunchback Meng was, after all, a soul formation cultivator and an expert in poison attacks. Although the sound attack made him a bit wary, he was still able to kill them all. However, he didn't get very far before more than 100,000 creatures appeared. He killed 100,000, then another 100, then another 1 million, then another 10 million. There were countless creatures inside each black tornadoes. These black tornadoes were created by these creatures flying together and flapping their wings. After killing like this, he didn't even know how many he had killed. In the end, the spiritual energy in his body was in a mess, and he was exhausted. Finally, he managed to break through the encirclement of the creatures and hid inside the black tower, not daring to come out. Even though he was a soul formation cultivator and had poison techniques, he was getting tired of killing them. There were too many of them. He was even worried that after he killed all the creatures outside, 10 times the number of creatures would fly in. Especially in this endless earth elemental land, there were countless black tornadoes. Forget 10 times, even 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times the number was possible. As a result, Hunchback Meng couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. These creatures weren't very powerful individually, but if there were more than 100 million or even a billion of them unleashing a sonic attack at the same time, then even a soul formation stage cultivator like him would have his spiritual sense shattered on the spot, and even his body would be shattered. The more Wang Lin walked, the more confused he became. He had already walked thousands of miles, but aside from the occasional black tornadoes, he didn't encounter any danger. However, the resistance underground was getting stronger and stronger, forcing him to slow down. More than half of the spiritual energy in his body was fighting against the resistance. On this day, Wang Lin appeared outside the Black Tower. This Black Tower was more than 100 feet tall and pierced through the clouds. The moment Wang Lin entered the tower, his expression changed. He stared at the ground of the first floor and saw a few light marks on the thick layer of dust. It was as if someone had rubbed the dust. Wang Lin slowly walked over and looked down for a bit. His eyes lit up as he carefully searched the tower from the bottom to the top. Finally, he saw the dust on the highest floor that had been stepped on and was a mess. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He was now certain that someone else had entered the earth elemental land before him. Also, based on the marks on the dust, this person shouldn't have been gone for too long. Wang Lin stood on the highest floor and looked out the window. From this position, he could clearly see into the distance. However, aside from the black tornadoes, there was nothing else in the sky. After pondering for a while, Wang Lin immediately slowed down and walked forward slowly. According to his analysis, no matter who was in front of him, it made no difference to him. Once he encountered them, he would definitely be controlled by them. However, if he could control the distance, then he could borrow the power of the other party to help him pass through the earth elemental land safely. With this thought in mind, Wang Lin casually moved forward. As a result, it wasn't until 3 days later that he was 5,000 kilometers away. Every time he passed a black tower, he would send out a devil to check it out. Only after he was sure it was safe would he carefully enter. Along the way, he was used to standing on the top floor and looking out every time he arrived at a tower. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. Wherever he looked, he saw large and small tornadoes moving forward quickly. These tornadoes seemed to be summoned by something and moved in the same direction. Along the way, he was already used to standing at the top of each tower and looking forward. Suddenly, his pupils shrank. Wherever he looked, he could see large and small tornadoes moving forward rapidly. These tornadoes seemed to be summoned by something, moving in the same direction. Wang Lin's eyes flickered, and after looking for a while, he walked down from the Black Tower. Outside the tower, his body sank, and he entered underground, fleeing forwards. The resistance underground was even stronger. Right now, Wang Lin needed to use 80% of his spiritual energy to resist it in order to slowly use the earth escape technique. As he was escaping, Wang Lin's body suddenly stopped. His divine sense noticed that the sand in front of him was giving off a black glow and a pungent smell. Without a word, Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding and took out the pill Hunchback Meng gave him. He immediately put it in his mouth and jumped out of the ground. This was the first time he revealed himself before reaching the Black Tower. Once he came out of the desert, the roar of the wind became several times louder. The shockwaves from the tornadoes hit his body, causing him pain. But right now, Wang Lin didn't care about that. He narrowed his eyes, formed a seal with his right hand, and quickly said, "Go!" Suddenly, a strange gust of wind appeared out of thin air. It pierced through the aftermath of the gust of wind and quickly swam through the surrounding desert. Gradually, the desert seemed to be moved by an invisible hand, lifting up layer by layer, revealing the countless pitch-black beast corpses buried within. This was a creature that was only the size of a fist. It had a pair of thin wings, a sharp mouth, and a ferocious face. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense to check the area. His expression immediately darkened. There were no less than 10,000 corpses here, and they were all black. They were all poisoned to death. Wang Lin immediately knew that the person who entered the earth elemental land with him was Hunchback Meng. Thinking of Hunchback Meng, Wang Lin sneered, but at the same time, he was secretly on guard. He took a step, sank into the ground, and moved toward the Black Tower. Several hours later, Wang Lin's divine sense found the Black Tower. However, in front of the tower, there was a small tornado. The tornado was roaring violently and slowly swaying. Wang Lin pondered a little and slowly backed up a few feet. He was going to go around the tornado and move toward the next Black Tower, but at this moment, the tornado moved toward Wang Lin's location. Layers of sand were lifted up, sucked into the whirlpool, and then shot out. Some of the sand hit the Black Tower, creating a series of crackling sounds. Wang Lin sneered in his heart. He spread out his divine sense and found that there was only one tornado nearby. Without a word, his G-realm divine sense shot out from his eyes and entered the tornado. At this moment, he immediately felt that there were more than 1,000 divine senses inside the tornado. Each divine sense was equivalent to a core formation cultivator. As long as they weren't stronger than nascent soul cultivators, they wouldn't pose a threat to Wang Lin. He spread out his divine sense, and nearly 100 divine senses were destroyed. But at this moment, the remaining 900 divine senses fused together in a strange way. They turned into a divine sense sword and stabbed toward Wang Lin's divine sense. At the same time, the small tornado suddenly paused. With this pause, the tornado's rotation disappeared, revealing the countless small creatures inside. These small creatures were the same as the one Wang Lin saw earlier. They were tightly packed together, flapping their wings, and whimpering sounds came from their mouths. The moment the divine sense sword appeared, the sound gathered together to form a sharp sound wave that mercilessly stabbed toward Wang Lin's divine sense along with the divine sense sword. Wang Lin frowned and immediately retracted his divine sense. He slapped his bag of holding, and the devil flew out. When it saw the divine sense sword, its eyes lit up, and it didn't wait for Wang Lin's orders before excitedly pouncing on it. The moment the devil flew out, the divine sense sword and the sound wave attack arrived one after the other. The devil let out an excited roar, and its body turned into a cloud of black smoke. In an instant, it surrounded the divine sense of the small creatures. As for the sound wave attack, it had no effect on the devil, and it passed right through it. At the same time, Wang Lin opened his mouth and spat out a crystal light. The flying sword flashed out and stabbed toward the small creatures. The moment the flying sword flew into the group of small creatures, the small creatures scattered one by one, filling the sky. Seeing the small creatures scatter, Wang Lin suddenly slapped his bag of holding and hundreds of flying swords flew out. Wang Lin swept his divine sense over them and used the power of his G-realm divine sense to control these flying swords like a meteor shower. Today and tomorrow, I'll go to the hospital for physical therapy, so I can only write 6,000 words. I'll postpone it. The original 9,000 words should have been written until the 14th, but now it'll be postponed until the 18th. In any case, before the end of the month, I'll write another 9,000 words in 15 days. As for the chapters 10 in August, I'll do everything I can to make up for it. Chapter 173. Wang Lin didn't plan on dealing with the small beasts all at once. He wanted to force them away. Sure enough, the small beasts scattered under the rain of flying swords. Wang Lin's body flashed, and he charged into the Black Tower through the gaps between the small beasts. Outside the Black Tower, Wang Lin stood still. The hundreds of flying swords circled in the air and returned to his bag of holding. At the same time, he summoned the devil. The devil was happily devouring the small beast's divine sense and didn't care about Wang Lin's summons at all. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he let out a cold snort. When this voice entered the devil's ears, it caused him to shiver. He didn't dare to continue devouring, so his body condensed into a cloud of black smoke and followed Wang Lin into the tower. He floated next to Wang Lin, feeling wronged, as he watched the divine senses of the small beasts return to their bodies. It couldn't understand what was wrong with this fiend's brain. Why didn't he kill all these enemies and instead let it come back? Wang Lin's eyes became serious as he stood inside the Black Tower and stared at the small beasts. There was a reason why he didn't let the devil continue devouring. Wang Lin had just thought of this problem. From a number of small beasts, they gathered together to form a hurricane. In this earth element land, hurricanes were the most common. From this, it could be seen that the number of these small beasts was unimaginable. At the same time, these small beasts used sound waves and divine sense to attack. Compared to this, their bodies were very weak. As a result, if there weren't many of these small beasts, it would be very easy to kill them. Especially with Hunchback Meng's ability, he could easily kill them with his poison mist. However, Wang Lin couldn't forget what he saw a few days ago at the top of a black tower. The endless black hurricane was quickly gathering in one direction. This was a purposeful flight. From this, it could be seen that these small beasts had a special summoning method. Once they killed too many of them, they would summon their companions. If he fell into this cycle, then what awaited him was death and endless gusts of wind. At the same time, if he killed too many of them, he might summon back the hurricanes that were attracted by Hunchback Meng. If that happened, then it wouldn't be Hunchback Meng opening a path for him, but he would be helping Hunchback Meng control the hurricanes. In the battle earlier, about 200 small beasts' divine sense were destroyed by Wang Lin and the devil. At this moment, Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he stared at the small beasts outside. The small beasts gradually gathered together to form a hurricane. They circled around Wang Lin a few times and then moved forward. After the hurricane moved far away, Wang Lin let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, he felt a chill in his heart. This earth element land was very strange and almost defied common sense. No matter who it was, as long as they were surrounded by these small beasts and saw their divine sense and sound wave attacks, they would know how weak their bodies were. Their first thought would be to kill them all so they wouldn't attract more beasts. But as a result, as long as they were killed to a certain extent, once the small beasts began to summon their companions, unless they had a heaven-defying cultivation level, they were doomed to die. Wang Lin sat cross-legged inside the Black Tower. After cultivating for a while, he stared at the black tornado in the distance, which was still moving toward a certain direction. He pondered for a while, but he wasn't in a rush to leave, so he stayed inside the Black Tower. He looked at the devil. The devil's face revealed a gloomy expression as it stared at the hurricane that was moving away from the tower. Its eyes revealed a reluctant expression. Wang Lin didn't explain and said coldly, "I don't care how much divine sense you prepared. Spit out half of it." The devil struggled for a long time, wondering if this devil would chase after him if he immediately rushed out. After hesitating for a long time, the devil finally saw Wang Lin's unkind gaze and immediately trembled. He hurriedly spat out large mouthfuls of divine scents from the souls of the small beasts. After spitting out about 20, he hurriedly pretended to be weak and said complacently in his heart, "No matter how capable you are, you still have to eat what I spit out. If you have the ability, then don't eat it." Wang Lin naturally didn't know what the devil was thinking, but seeing the complacent expression that flashed across its face, he could roughly guess. However, this kind of thing, Wang Lin didn't bother to argue with him. His attention was completely focused on the 20 divine sense souls floating in front of him. After carefully observing for a while, Wang Lin's eyes flashed and he grabbed the 20 souls. He stood up and walked to the upper level of the Black Tower. In the middle level, he looked around and found that the size was suitable. Thus, he spread out his divine sense and immediately wrapped up the surroundings. The devil followed behind Wang Lin, wanting to personally see him eat the souls that were stained with his saliva. At this moment, in his complacency, he suddenly discovered that the surroundings were covered by the divine sense. The red lightning that caused him so much pain that he didn't want to live was constantly wandering around. His whole body immediately became weak and withered. He thought to himself, it's over, it seems this devil is going to deal with me." In his fear, he was about to beg for mercy, but he discovered that Wang Lin didn't even look at him and only stared at the 20 beast souls in silence. Thus, he swallowed the words of begging and inwardly exclaimed his good luck. Wang Lin observed these beast souls. The divine sense of the beast was equivalent to an early-stage core formation cultivator. It couldn't be said to be strong, but it wasn't weak either. If it wasn't for the devil being cultivated by him to have a trace of wandering soul characteristics, he probably wouldn't be able to so easily swallow the divine sense that was similar to his current cultivation level. It was because of the devil's success that Wang Lin had the idea of making another devil. He knew that his biggest weakness was that he didn't have many treasures, but he didn't have many that he could use. Up until now, he only had a flying sword. As for the others, they were all low-level treasures that weren't very useful. In addition to the flying sword, there was also the devil. This devil could be very useful in many things. For example, just now, if he didn't throw the devil to deal with the divine sense, perhaps Wang Lin would have wasted quite a bit of effort. In addition to these two, there was also a dragon tendon and a scroll. Unfortunately, the aura inside the scroll was too strange, so Wang Lin didn't plan on using it before he completely understood it. The key to raising a devil was the special characteristics of the soul. The first devil had the potential to become a nascent soul and was somewhat similar to a wandering soul. Thus, under Wang Lin's forceful cultivation, it finally had a trace of the characteristics of a wandering soul. However, compared to a wandering soul that could truly cause a catastrophe in the world of living beings, there was still a lot of difference. If it was a wandering soul, then it could ignore any cultivation level. With 1 pounce, it could swallow the soul and absorb the essence of the flesh and blood. Unless it encountered a powerful cultivator, then it could be destroyed. Otherwise, its natural enemy was only a soul devourer. As for the devil that Su Ligua had turned into, it could only devour those of the same cultivation level. If it encountered a nascent soul cultivator, then if it tried to devour them by force, it could fail at any time. What caught Wang Lin's attention was the little beast's ability to fuse together. This was the first time he had seen so many individual divine senses fuse together to form a new divine sense. This special characteristic made Wang Lin want to use it to make a devil. Wang Lin pondered a little. He slapped his bag of holding, and a few soul flags flew out and floated beside him. There were many souls sealed inside these soul flags. Most of them were demonic cultivators, but some were the souls of creatures in the sea of devils. He waved his right hand, and a cage made of spiritual energy appeared and trapped 19 of the little beast souls. Only one was left floating in the air, motionless. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He took out a soul from one of the soul flags, left a mark on it, and threw it out. Unfortunately, like Su Ligua, the little beast soul didn't know how to devour. It just looked around blankly. However, Wang Lin wasn't in a rush. After the first time he raised the devil, he knew that turning a normal soul into a wandering soul required time. However, this first step required him to activate it. Wang Lin's eyes flashed red, and his G-realm turned into a red net. It surrounded the little beast and slowly shrank. Under the pressure, the little beast's divine sense began to move inward. Seeing the red net getting closer and closer, it could only fly toward the soul and get closer and closer. Wang Lin's eyes became serious as he stared at the little beast. Suddenly, the little beast's divine sense sped up and smashed into the soul. It didn't devour the soul, but fused with it. Wang Lin could clearly feel that the little beast's divine sense had become stronger. He was very surprised. He thought that it would take a lot of effort to force the little beast to devour the soul. After all, that was what Su Ligua did. He didn't expect the little beast to fuse with it. Although it wasn't devouring, the effect was the same. Without a word, Wang Lin put away the red net and took out another soul. He left a sliver of his divine sense on it and threw it out. This time, Wang Lin didn't need to force it. The little beast's divine sense immediately fused with it. Because of this, Wang Lin's interest was piqued. His eyes flashed, and he pointed at the soul flag. Immediately, dozens of souls flew out. He left a sliver of his divine sense on them and threw them out. At this moment, the little beast's divine sense suddenly moved. It quickly collided with the souls. Every time it collided with a soul, it would fuse with the next one. In less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the dozens of souls had been absorbed. The little beast's divine sense had become even stronger. It was showing signs of breaking through the early stage of core formation and entering the mid-stage. Wang Lin's interest grew. He grabbed a soul flag with his right hand and shook it. The remaining hundreds of souls flew out and left a sliver of their divine sense on the little beast's divine sense. The little beast's divine sense immediately let out a shrill cry. This was the first time it had made a sound inside the pagoda. The moment the cry came out, it immediately turned into ripples that spread out in all directions. Wang Lin's face revealed a happy expression and his eyes flickered. He knew that he had picked up a treasure. He didn't know why the little beast's divine sense was so strange. It was as if it was born to be a demon. It didn't even need to activate it before it automatically began to fuse with the souls. In addition, what made Wang Lin even more surprised was that the little beast's physical body could only emit sound waves. He didn't think that the little beast's divine sense could also emit sound waves. From the looks of it, the sound wave attack emitted by the divine sense was clearly an attack that specifically targeted souls. After the sound wave appeared, the swarming souls suddenly slowed down and even showed signs of collapsing. Just at this moment, the little beast's divine sense shot out like lightning. In less than the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, it completely devoured the hundreds of souls. Shortly after, the souls turned into a red mist that spread out for about 10 feet before slowly quieting down. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He waved the soul flag, and the remaining 19 souls were sucked into the soul flag. After putting them into his bag of holding, Wang Lin stared at the red mist. He could feel that the divine sense he left in the souls was slowly entering the little beast's divine sense. The demon on the side stared at the scene in front of him in shock. He thought to himself, "Fierce. This little brother is too fierce. This won't do. I have to work hard, or else I might be fed to this little brother by this fiend." The demon's body trembled, and he immediately took a few steps back. For the first time, he sat down cross-legged in the air and quickly digested the souls that he had accumulated during this period of time. He stayed there for 3 days. During these 3 days, the red mist didn't change at all. Every day, aside from observing the red mist, Wang Lin also saw countless hurricanes pass by. One of the hurricanes was 10 feet wide, and it was like the king of hurricanes as it passed by the Black Tower. The moment the largest hurricane passed by, it paused for a moment. Wang Lin immediately noticed countless divine senses closing in. Their target wasn't him, but the red mist inside the tower. However, the moment the divine senses touched the Black Tower, they were bounced back. The king-like hurricane stayed outside the Black Tower for a while before slowly leaving. Wang Lin clearly noticed that the moment the divine senses closed in, there was a strange fluctuation coming from the red mist. Wang Lin was secretly shocked by this and observed it even more carefully. Gradually, more and more hurricanes appeared, and they were all heading in the same direction. Wang Lin sneered in his heart. He didn't need a guess to know that the direction was where Hunchback Meng was. Hunchback Meng's face was as calm as water. In truth, after killing the first wave of small beasts, he was immediately surrounded by a second wave of small beasts. He had already guessed that he was going to be the anchor. He was following his experience in the glacier. There was a similar creature there, and there were a lot of them. You had to kill them as soon as you saw them, or else you would attract even more. However, this damn Earthland was the exact opposite. This made Hunchback Meng bitterly smile. However, things had already reached this point. Even if he stopped killing, the small beasts would continue to attack him with their divine senses and sound waves. In the end, Hunchback Meng's demonic nature was stimulated. He let loose and released a large amount of poison mist. As a result, the small beasts began to call out even more frequently. Even though he was hiding inside the Black Tower, the number of small beasts outside didn't decrease. Instead, it increased to the point where his scalp went numb. At this moment, he was standing inside the Black Tower, gazing at the hurricane outside that stretched as far as the eye could see. Almost at every moment, the number of those little beasts would increase. He had also tried to use the Black Tower as a foothold and release poison from the window of the tower, but there was a powerful restriction inside the Black Tower. While it prevented the little beasts from attacking, it also prevented the person inside from casting spells outside. If he walked out of the Black Tower, Hunchback Meng didn't have any confidence. He believed that as long as he took a step out, what awaited him would be the combined divine sense and sound wave attack of hundreds of millions or even billions of small beasts. Even though he was a soul formation cultivator in the sea of devils who could make tens of millions of earth cultivators tremble with just a stomp of his foot, he couldn't withstand the divine sense and sound wave attacks of hundreds of millions of small beasts. He pondered for a long time before touching the toad on his shoulder. His face revealed a vicious expression, and without a word, he pointed at the toad. The toad immediately fell off his shoulder and lay on the ground, making gurgling sounds. Hunchback Meng's heart ached as he looked at the toad. He let out a sigh and put the toad away again. After pondering for a bit, he took out a 100-foot-long red python. This python had a single horn on its head, and the moment it appeared, it gave off a fiery aura. If the heaven-departing toad is used as a substitute, this old man should not be injured. But if that's the case, the toad will definitely die. AI, this crimson horn python is at the peak of the mid-grade spirit tier. Although I can use it as a substitute, I'm afraid I will also be injured. As Hunchback Meng muttered to himself, he moved his thumb and middle finger and a drop of blood flew out. He uttered a few strange words, and the drop of blood quickly turned milky white. It quickly landed on the head of the python. Hunchback Meng's expression was serious. His hand formed seals and slowly pressed on his forehead. Then he slowly raised his hand and pulled out a string from his forehead. It slowly landed on the white spot on the python's head. After a long time, Hunchback Meng took a deep breath and slowly stood up. He casually threw the python on the ground. The moment the python landed on the ground, it coiled up and lay there motionlessly. Hunchback Meng's eyes were filled with viciousness. Without a word, he stepped out of the stone tower. The moment he stepped out, the roaring of the tornadoes became several times stronger. All of the small beasts inside the tornadoes gathered their divine senses together to form a series of lightning bolts that shot out like crazy. At this moment, the color of the heaven and earth division changed. Even the restriction above the earth elemental land began to shake and let out thunderous roars. Wang Lin wasn't very close, but he could still feel the pressure. He opened his eyes and looked in the direction of Hunchback Meng. At the same time, the change in the red mist appeared again. Wang Lin immediately withdrew his gaze and stared at the red mist. He reached out his right hand, and a blue flame slowly appeared in his palm. If the devil inside the red mist couldn't be controlled, Wang Lin planned on using both his divine sense and the blue flame to completely destroy it. If it could be controlled, then it would be easy to deal with. At the moment the powerful divine sense attack arrived, Hunchback Meng didn't dodge. He waved his sleeves, and a large amount of black clouds came out of his sleeves. The moment the black clouds appeared, they began to spread. Any small beast that touched the black clouds immediately fell out of the tornadoes and turned into black smoke. The black smoke rose into the air and became part of the black clouds. At the same time, a series of divine sense attacks filled with destructive power arrived. Hunchback Meng let out a miserable groan, and his body gradually turned into a 100-foot-long python with a single horn on its head. It tumbled a few times in the air before its body stiffened and was crushed by the sound waves. Even its inner core was turned into nothing. Inside the black tower, the python that was originally coiled up became blurry and turned into Hunchback Meng. His face was pale as he coughed out a mouthful of blood. He revealed a bloodthirsty smile and muttered, "The old man's heaven-crippling poison is known as the #1 poison in the Sea of Devils. I have already released all of it. I don't believe I can't wipe out your entire clan." The black cloud outside the pagoda he was in felt as if every hurricane that came into contact with it would immediately collapse and turn into little beasts. Following that, these little puenes all turned into black smoke and became a part of the black cloud. As a result, the black clouds became larger and larger and began to spread at an insane speed. As for Wang Lin, his eyes were very serious as he stared at the red clouds. The fluctuations inside the red clouds became more and more intense as the red clouds slowly retreated. Wang Lin didn't even blink as the ice flame in his hand burned. At the same time, his eyes flashed red and the restrictions around him became even stronger. Even the devil that was cultivating noticed the abnormality. After it regained its consciousness, it looked at the situation and was very happy. It thought, "It seems like this little brother is not that easy to subdue. It would be best if the two of you fight until both of you are seriously injured. Then I'll devour both of you." Haha, this is a good idea. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. His eyes kept flashing. Although this devil, Su Ligua, had recovered some of his memories, it was only a trace. The rest of his memories had already disappeared the moment he turned into a devil. At this moment, he didn't think of himself as a cultivator at all. Instead, he thought of himself as a devil from head to toe. As time slowly passed, the red mist became smaller and smaller. In the end, it suddenly shrank and condensed into a ball that emitted a red light. With a few cracking sounds, the ball shattered and a strand of dark red gas suddenly spread out. As soon as this gas appeared, it immediately turned into Qi Xiaoshuo's head. It had a long pointed mouth and emitted a dense aura that could frighten one's soul. The moment it transformed, it immediately disappeared. Wang Lin was shocked, but his eyes were calm. He stared at the empty space on his right, and his G-realm divine sense flew out like lightning. The transformed devil suddenly appeared where Wang Lin was looking at. Its eyes were filled with shock, and its body disappeared again. For the first time, Wang Lin's G-realm divine sense missed. From this, it could be seen how fast the transformed devil was. Wang Lin's expression was the same as usual. Not only was there no panic in his eyes, but he was even calmer. His eyes were cold, and his G-realm divine sense flashed behind him. A miserable cry immediately rang out. The moment the transformed devil appeared, it immediately collided with the G-realm divine sense. It couldn't dodge in time and was instantly penetrated by the G-realm divine sense. Its body involuntarily floated up and slowly arrived in front of Wang Lin. The devil's eyes were filled with horror, and it let out a whimper. The devil, Su Ligua, sucked in a breath of cold air and quickly threw away the rebellious thoughts in its heart. It didn't think that this evil star would be able to subdue its little brother so easily. After pondering for a moment, it vaguely guessed the answer. It cursed in its heart, "Despicable! My lords, the monthly vote is too shameful. Can you give me some face?" Chapter 174. A cold light appeared in Wang Lin's eyes as he stared at the small devil. His G-realm divine sense suddenly left his body and turned into a giant red flood dragon that roared at the small devil. The majesty of a soul devourer was immediately displayed. Not to mention the small devil. Even the devil Suligua was so scared that he immediately shrank to the ground and didn't dare to move. The pressure of a natural predator made his heart tremble. The small devil struggled and also roared a few times. However, compared to Wang Lin, it was filled with a sense of powerlessness. Slowly, the small devil's eyes revealed a begging expression. The red dragon formed by Wang Lin's divine sense coldly stared at the devil for a long time before returning to Wang Lin's body. At the same time, he waved his right hand and took out a soul flag. Without a word, the devil turned into red smoke and entered the soul flag. Wang Lin left a trace of his divine sense on the soul flag before putting it back into his storage bag. At the same time, he waved his right hand and a thin thread immediately lit up around him. These were all the early measures he had set up with his divine sense to subdue the devil. As Wang Lin made a grabbing motion with his hand, these threads of divine sense immediately merged together and were put away by him. The reason why he was able to see through the small devil, no matter how fast it was partly because of these threads of divine sense. When Wang Lin had sensed that the devil was acting strangely, he had quietly turned the divine sense restrictions around him into threads that densely covered the surroundings like a spider's web. No matter where the small devil went, it would be immediately sensed by Wang Lin. At the same time, the trace of divine sense left in the devil's body after it had fused with many souls was also very useful. With these two factors working together, it wasn't surprising that Wang Lin could sense the devil's movements. After withdrawing his divine sense, Wang Lin stood up and looked out the window. After pondering for a moment, his body suddenly moved and he walked down. At the entrance of the tower, he tidied himself up and stepped out. The devil followed closely behind. When it saw Wang Lin's body sink into the ground, it quickly followed. Unfortunately, it didn't follow for long before Wang Lin grabbed it and threw it into the dragon tendon. At this position, the resistance underground had become extremely strong. Wang Lin needed to use almost all of Jiu Wei's spiritual energy to resist it, so his speed couldn't help but slow down. While slowly moving forward, his spiritual sense spread out from the ground, cautiously observing the distance. Several days later, Wang Lin's expression slightly changed. He could see with his divine sense that there was a black cloud in the distance. This black cloud was extremely fast, and it was rapidly flying towards him. Wherever the black cloud passed, the hurricanes would disperse. Sometimes, there would be people who couldn't dodge in time, and they would turn into small beasts and be swallowed by the black cloud. Wang Lin stared at the black cloud. He immediately put the anti-poison pill in his mouth and slowly sank down. Not long after, the black cloud closed in. Behind the black cloud was the king of hurricanes. The hurricanes were rapidly rotating, creating a powerful gust of wind that blew the black cloud away. The black cloud created by the king of the tornado flashed by where Wang Lin was hiding. Not long after, the king of the tornado returned. This time, it was even faster. It let out a loud roar as it disappeared into the distance. After it left, Wang Lin slowly moved forward again. He sneered in his heart. Needless to say, that black cloud was created by Hunchback Meng. Looking at its power, if it wasn't for the king of hurricanes blowing it away, those small beasts would have suffered heavy casualties. He pondered a little, and his eyes lit up. If those small beasts could kill Hunchback Meng, he would have a lot of treasures and pills on him. Thinking about the treasures of a soul formation cultivator, Wang Lin's heart couldn't help but beat faster. Compared to treasures, his life was more important. After letting out a sigh, Wang Lin put away those unrealistic thoughts and continued to move forward. However, after confirming the direction of Hunchback Meng, he changed his direction. He didn't go in a straight line, but went around it. Half a month later, under Wang Lin's caution, He went around the group of hurricanes that shocked him the moment he looked at it with his spiritual sense. It was a densely packed group of hurricanes, and the number of small beasts in it was probably more than several hundred million. Wang Lin's scalp tingled, and he became even more careful. Finally, after half a month, he went around it. Luckily, most of the hurricanes were attracted by Hunchback Meng. Along the way, Wang Lin was very careful, so he didn't encounter any danger. He was currently standing inside a black tower. When he turned around, Hunchback Meng was there. After sneering a few times, Wang Lin didn't say a word and quickly left the black tower. He could already see a giant whirlpool in the sky, far away. That vortex was the same as the one in the void, so it clearly led to the second trial. Wang Lin took a deep breath and walked toward the vortex. The Earth escape technique couldn't be used here. The resistance underground was too strong. Even if he used his 10 might spiritual force to resist it, it would be difficult for him to use the Earth escape technique. However, the Earth escape technique didn't only increase one's speed underground. Even if one wasn't underground, as long as there was earth under one's feet, although it was slower than a flying sword, it was still a bit faster than walking. In these past few months, Wang Lin had been using the Earth escape technique almost every day. Right now, he was very familiar with it. Wang Lin could vaguely feel that the Earth escape technique he was practicing was only superficial compared to the Earth escape technique described in the Jade. While Wang Lin was sighing, he didn't forget to spread out his spiritual sense to carefully observe his surroundings. Luckily, most of the hurricanes were attracted by Hunchback Meng, so Wang Lin didn't encounter any danger. 3 days later, the vortex was within sight. As Wang Lin was walking, he suddenly stopped and immediately drilled into the ground. Suddenly, a large amount of resistance came from underground. He quickly drank a large gulp of spirit liquid and used the spiritual force in his body to resist it. Not far away, more than 10 hurricanes suddenly appeared. These hurricanes were coming from the vortex, and their target was Hunchback Meng. When they passed by where Wang Lin was hiding, they suddenly stopped and circled around him. Wang Lin's heart sank. He had tried to enter the heaven-defying bead space before, but he didn't know why he couldn't enter it. Otherwise, he would have been able to safely pass through it. Wang Lin looked at the vortex in the distance and calculated a bit. He immediately clenched his teeth and slapped his bag of holding. The devil immediately appeared. It immediately noticed a large amount of small beasts outside. It was so excited that it rushed out of the ground without thinking. Unfortunately, the moment it appeared, the surrounding 10 hurricanes let out a powerful roar. Tens of thousands of divine senses fused together to form a bolt of lightning that shot toward the devil. The devil let out a few miserable screams. The combination of the opposing divine senses was not something it could handle. Green smoke came out of its body and scared it so much that it wanted to return to Wang Lin's side. At this moment, the second wave of divine senses arrived like lightning. At the same time, Wang Lin took out the soul flag and shook it. The second devil immediately appeared. After it came out of the ground, it was startled for a moment and then let out a sharp cry. The moment this roar echoed, the tornadoes immediately trembled and stopped rotating. Instead, countless small beasts flapped their wings. These small beasts looked at the second devil in shock. Even the second wave of divine sense that attacked Su Ligua was immediately withdrawn. The second devil's eyes revealed a red glow, and it let out a few more roars. The small beasts quickly backed off and looked at the devil with fear in their eyes. Wang Lin was very surprised, and his eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. As for the devil Su Ligua, he felt very humiliated. Recovering his memories wasn't necessarily a good thing. At the very least, before he recovered his memories, he wouldn't have felt this kind of humiliation. He thought to himself, "This is too shameful. I was saved by my underlings. No matter what, I was the first one to follow this fiend. This won't do. If this continues, this fiend will make more and more underlings, and every one of them will be more powerful than me. This won't do. I can't let this happen." The devil clenched its teeth and immediately charged into one of the hurricanes. It grabbed a few small beasts and threw them into its body to devour them. The small beasts panicked and were about to dodge when the second devil let out a few more roars. The small beasts didn't dare to move, and the fear in their eyes grew even stronger. The more Wang Lin watched, the brighter his eyes became. He began to analyze the situation in his heart. The second devil, in the eyes of the other small beasts, was between their own kind and their own kind. There must be some mysterious change that caused the second devil to surpass their own kind, which was why they were able to see this. If that was the case, then the reason why the small beasts could fuse their divine senses together was becoming clear. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he immediately emerged from the ground. The moment he appeared, the group of small beasts became vigilant, but they didn't panic, nor did they attack. The second devil looked at the devouring Su Ligua and let out a few strange roars. Suddenly, all of the small beasts' bodies trembled, and their divine senses left their bodies. They gathered together, and lightning appeared once again, targeting Su Ligua. The devil, Su Ligua, immediately smiled and put on a fawning expression. He quickly spat out all of the divine senses he had just devoured, then quickly returned to Wang Lin's side. The fawning expression on his face disappeared and was replaced with a fierce expression as he stared at the second devil. In his heart, he muttered, "Just you wait, just you wait. If you push me too far, I'll fight you to the death." Wang Lin didn't even look at Su Ligua. He secretly held the defensive jade slip that Li Muin had given him and slowly released his divine sense to observe the small beasts. Finally, he found that within each group of 10 small beasts, there was a variant whose divine sense was much stronger than the others. While Wang Lin was observing, one of the 10 foreign beasts suddenly flew out and stopped before the second devil. It let out a series of sharp screeches. Chapter 175. The second devil's eyes flashed red, and without a word, it charged forward. The divergent was also valiant. Not only did it not dodge, but it also sent out its divine sense to meet the attack head-on. The two fused together. Wang Lin immediately sensed the changes through the divine sense he left in the second devil. This was a dangerous situation, and only one of the two could exist. Either the second devil would be devoured, or the divergent would be fused. Soon, Wang Lin let out a smile. As a fragrant soul, the devil he made already had a trace of the characteristics of a wandering soul. How could this foreign creature compare to it? The two divine senses fused and devoured each other. Gradually, the second devil appeared, and the divergent's divine sense dimmed. Finally, it was completely fused with the second devil, becoming a part of its body. The moment the fusion was successful, a group of small beasts flew to the side of the second devil and surrounded it, once again forming a hurricane. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. The reason the divine senses of these small beasts could perfectly fuse together was because there was a dominant divine sense inside. This divine sense could even devour and fuse with the small beasts. It had a lot to do with this. At this moment, the second devil let out a few roars and was about to pounce on the next divergent. Wang Lin's eyes flashed, and he let out a light snort. Suddenly, the second devil's momentum slowed, and the hurricane stopped spinning, turning back into the small beasts. Wang Lin could clearly see that the second devil, surrounded by the small beasts, had a pained expression on its face. It looked at Wang Lin with deep fear. Wang Lin sent out a divine sense, and the second devil immediately let out a roar. The surrounding small beasts surrounded Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression was the same as usual, and his eyes were as calm as water. He didn't show any signs of abnormality towards the small beasts flapping their wings. After the small beasts flew closer, they didn't attack. Instead, they lifted his body and turned it into a hurricane. The devil, Su Ligua, wanted to follow, but the moment he hit the hurricane, he was thrown back. He let out angry roars and felt wronged in his heart. Finally, Wang Lin reached out his hand, and Su Ligua entered the hurricane. Inside the hurricane, Wang Lin didn't need to fly. He was standing on the small beasts, and he was surrounded by the powerful divine senses of the small beasts. It was very difficult for others to detect him with their divine senses. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he gave the second devil an order. The hurricane immediately flew toward Hunchback Meng. The other tornadoes slowly followed. Just like this, more than a dozen tornadoes flew by and soon arrived at the group of tornadoes that shocked Wang Lin. At the moment they closed in, a powerful divine sense swept toward them. Wang Lin immediately became alert. That divine sense didn't stop and swept past them. That divine sense clearly didn't observe carefully. It only took a glance and didn't find anything abnormal. Perhaps from its point of view, it was impossible for this tornado to change. Wang Lin was inside the tornado as he stared at the Wind King in the distance and sneered in his heart. Needless to say, that divine sense came from one of the mutated creatures in the tornado. He now had some understanding of these creatures. Inside each hurricane, there was a relatively powerful creature. They were the ones that allowed the small beast's divine senses to gather and give orders. This was like the difference between a soldier and a general. A normal small beast was a soldier, and a powerful creature was a general. As for the hurricane that reached the sky, it was the king. After getting close, he looked through the tornadoes and saw a black tower piercing through the clouds. Hunchback Meng was clearly inside the tower. Wang Lin wasn't in a rush. The reason he let the second devil bring him here was because he knew that this method could allow him to get close without anyone noticing. As a result, he acted according to the situation. He didn't expect to kill Hunchback Meng, but to take some treasures from him. If he handled it well, it was still possible. The divine sense left inside the second devil was different from the one inside Su Ligua. Su Ligua had gone through a long period of evolution, and his divine sense had subtly controlled him. If Wang Lin wanted to, he didn't even need his G-realm divine sense to destroy him. However, he normally wouldn't use the divine sense inside the second devil's body to attack. He would save it as a last resort. Normally, he would use his G-realm divine sense as a threat and subtly control. After all, Su Ligua had recovered a bit of his memory, so he was clearly different from a normal wandering soul. But the second devil was different. Although Wang Lin's divine sense imprint wasn't deep, he was able to forcefully take over the second devil's body. He didn't allow the second devil to resist at all. The reason he didn't let the second devil absorb more of the leaders of the other hurricanes was because if the second devil devoured too many, it would weaken the divine sense imprint Wang Lin left inside the second devil's body. If that happened, there would be a backlash. With Wang Lin's shrewdness, he wouldn't let that happen. Even someone as tenacious as Su Ligua was beaten by Wang Lin. There is no need to mention the second devil refined from a bee soul. Hunchback Meng's face was as gloomy as water as he bitterly looked at the tornadoes outside. After staring at the sky-reaching tornado for a while, his eyes revealed a look of dread. The divine sense inside the sky-reaching tornado was almost as powerful as all the other tornadoes combined. Even the heavens' crippling poison was forcibly broken by the divine sense and sent far away. During this period of time, he had used up all the spirit beasts in his storage pouch. Every time he replaced them with spirit beasts, he would throw out a spell from the tower. Although he could destroy a large group of small beasts, it would only take a short while for more tornadoes to fly over from afar. It was impossible to kill them all. If he was a bit careless, he would be hit by the divine sense of these countless small spirit beasts. Even if he was a soul formation cultivator, he would still be seriously injured if not dead. This injury would not be a light one, but a serious injury that would cause his cultivation level to drop greatly. As for magic treasures, he had used a lot of them. Although they were effective, the result was the same. At that moment, he was already at the end of his rope. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of charging out, and he had even put it into action. At that time, he had used more than 10 spirit beasts as substitutes to directly charge out. However, just as he was about to charge out of the encirclement, the sky-piercing hurricane gave him a vicious blow. As a result, all his efforts were in vain. Not only did he fail to charge out, but he was also severely injured. Does the heavens want me to die? The old man hid his cultivation from the heavens and finally reached the mid-stage of soul formation. I thought I could use this place to obtain a soul transformation pill and reach the soul transformation stage, but unfortunately, Hunchback Ming bitterly thought about it. He couldn't help but think about the group of people that came here 1,000 years ago. In the end, aside from the four of them, everyone else died. Among those people, there were some whose cultivation was higher than theirs, but in the end, they still couldn't avoid death. The four of them only managed to survive because of luck and coincidence. After 1,000 years of preparation, he had gone from the late stage of nascent soul to the mid-stage of soul formation. The reason he was able to progress so fast was because he ate the giant demon clan's treasure, the ancestral demon's heart. This was also why he was wanted by the giant demon clan and was being hunted down. Hunchback Ming revealed an unwilling expression. He clenched his teeth and looked at the toad on the ground. The blazing heaven toad had accompanied him for thousands of years and never left him. He watched it go from a low-quality spirit beast to a high-quality spirit beast. It was now a pseudo-desolate rank spirit beast. If it had another few thousand years, with the help of some spirit herbs, it could become a desolate rank spirit beast. However, Hunchback Ming revealed a determined expression. He touched the toad and whispered, "If teleportation could be used in this damn place, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Blazing heaven, this time it's all up to you." With that, his right hand reached out and entered the toad's mouth. The toad revealed a painful expression and its body trembled, but it didn't resist at all. It only calmly looked at its master. Hunchback Ming closed his eyes, but soon opened them. His eyes revealed a ruthless expression, and he said, "Blazing heaven, I'm sorry." With that, he grabbed the toad with his right hand and pulled it back. There was an extra item in his hand. It was a black origin core the size of a fist. It was emitting bursts of powerful spiritual energy. The blazing heaven toad's body tilted and weakly fell to the ground. It let out a weak sound, and the bumps on its back began to rupture. Stinky, black liquid flowed out and quickly covered its body. Even the gurgling sound seemed weak and feeble at this moment. After grabbing the toad's origin core, Hunchback Ming threw it into his mouth without a word. His body immediately twitched and black gas appeared on his face. Shortly after, he let out a few roars and the bumps on his face all exploded. The poisonous liquid splashed all over the walls of the tower, giving off black smoke. There are many types of spirit beast cores. Only spirit beasts that have a real core appear inside their body. Some spirit beasts have cores inside their bodies, but they are only fake cores. They are only temporarily formed by the spiritual energy inside their body to store spiritual energy. A real core is very effective. It is the foundation of all of the spirit beast's abilities. After reaching the low-quality spirit rank, the core will turn into an earth core, similar to a cultivator's core formation. However, it is still different from a real core formation cultivator. After reaching the mid-quality spirit rank, the earth core will turn into a heaven core. After reaching the high-quality spirit rank, the heaven core will turn into an origin core. At this moment, it is only one step away from becoming a desolate beast's origin soul. Only after reaching the desolate beast realm can the core turn into an origin soul. From then on, it will become an extremely powerful wild beast. The black gas on Hunchback Ming's face became even stronger. He lied down on the ground and grabbed the toad. After grabbing it, he let out a roar and pressed it on his forehead. More and more liquid came out of the bumps on the toad's back. This liquid went through the bumps on Hunchback Ming's face and entered his body. Eventually, the toad turned into black liquid and was absorbed by Hunchback Ming. The hump on Hunchback Ming's back suddenly swelled up, and countless bumps appeared. These bumps quickly covered his entire back. The current Hunchback Ming looked very similar to the toad from before. Hunchback Ming's eyes were slightly closed. The black gas on his face slowly gathered between his eyebrows and formed a vortex. Then he suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils turned into triangles and revealed a ruthless gaze. Hunchback Ming clenched his fist, and black lightning appeared on his fist. He took a deep breath and muttered to himself in a hoarse voice, This Shang-Ji demonic technique is really amazing. With the help of the high-quality spirit rank Defying Heaven Toad, I can reach the peak of the soul formation stage in a short period of time. This time I will definitely be able to break through. Unfortunately, the price is too high, if not for the fact that I have no other choice. Alas! With that, he slowly walked out of the Black Tower. The moment he appeared, the divine sense lightning descended. Hunchback Meng's face revealed a ferocious expression, and he spat out a green mist. The moment the divine sense lightning entered the green mist, it immediately slowed down. Using this opportunity, Hunchback Meng jumped into a tornado. The tornado suddenly stopped spinning and the small creatures inside scattered. However, they didn't get far before exploding one by one. Blood rained down from the sky. Hunchback Meng's eyes revealed a ruthless gaze as he charged toward the next tornado. But shortly after, the hundreds of millions of divine senses fused together to form a long spear. It silently appeared in the sky and shot out with the power to shatter the void. This long spear left a series of afterimages in the sky. One moment, it was still in the sky. The next moment, it arrived in front of Hunchback Meng. Along the way, the restrictions of the Earth element land were activated, creating a thunderous rumble. The tornado Wang Lin was far away, so it wasn't affected much. He stared at Hunchback Meng's ghost-like appearance. His eyes lit up, and when he saw the bag of holding on Hunchback Meng's waist, he became a bit more interested. Hunchback Meng only took one look at the long spear formed by the divine sense. His hand quickly formed a seal, and he chanted a few complex words. Then he opened his mouth, and a small cauldron covered in dense green gas flew out. The moment the cauldron appeared, dense green gas came out. At the same time, the long spear landed on the small cauldron. Where the two collided, a deafening explosion suddenly rang out. A ring-shaped shockwave that was more than 100 feet thick immediately spread out in all directions. Even the hurricanes could not help but fly back. Some of them could not dodge in time and were directly smashed by the shockwave. All of the little beasts within them were immediately turned to dust. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He backed up a bit along with the other tornadoes, but his gaze was still on Hunchback Meng. He didn't even blink. At this moment, the small green cauldron in the air let out a cracking sound as it broke into two pieces and fell from the sky. However, the spear that struck it began to turn green. In the blink of an eye, the entire spear turned green. The spear suddenly trembled and turned back into strands of divine sense that scattered in all directions. It was at this moment that a strange scene occurred. After the divine sense spread out, each one of them gained a bit of green light. However, the green light quickly spread out, and in the space of a few breaths, all of the divine sense that had formed the long spear had turned green. The moment the green cauldron shattered, Hunchback Meng's body weakened, and he coughed out several mouthfuls of blood. That green cauldron was his life treasure. With his temporary late-stage soul formation cultivation, it withstood hundreds of millions of divine sense attacks before finally breaking in half. Hunchback Meng didn't have time to feel heartache. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at the green divine sense attacks and began to laugh like crazy. If I don't pay a price, how can my life treasure be so easily damaged? Even if it breaks, I'll drag all of you down with me. Explode. Explode. J. Any divine sense that was touched by the green light immediately exploded. Once the divine sense exploded, it turned into spiritual energy and scattered in all directions. Once the divine sense was destroyed, the body would also die. As the divine senses exploded one by one, more than half of the tornadoes disappeared. All of the tornadoes stopped spinning, and all of the small creatures inside fell to the ground. Hunchback Meng's right hand reached out and put the two halves of the green cauldron into his bag of holding. Without a word, he took this opportunity to charge into the distance. The direction he came from happened to be where Wang Lin was. At this moment, the king of the tornadoes let out a violent roar. The entire tornadoes suddenly stopped spinning, revealing a 30-foot-tall flying beast. This beast was much larger than its peers, but in Wang Lin's eyes, it was far smaller than the desolate dragon inside the tunnel. The beast roared angrily and leaped out. Its long and sharp mouth emitted ripples as it roared. Wherever the ripples passed, cracks would appear in the space of the earth elemental land. From this, one could see how powerful it was. At the same time, the tornadoes that hadn't dissipated all charged toward Hunchback Ming. The tornadoes he charged into desperately tried to stop him. Divine senses, sound waves, and other attacks were dazzling, but they couldn't stop Hunchback Ming even half a step. All of the tornadoes that tried to stop him were destroyed by one hit. However, with every hit, the black vortex between Hunchback Ming's eyebrows became a bit dimmer. He complained in his heart. He knew that his cultivation increase was about to end. If he stopped for even a moment, he would be hit by the sound waves from the Beast King. So he sped up even more and charged forward. Wang Lin's eyes were sharp. At the moment the Beast King sent out the sound waves, he saw a flash of golden light on its head and half a golden finger bone was revealed. He didn't have time to think about it, because Hunchback Ming had already arrived. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he sneered. He slapped his bag of holding and the dragon tendon appeared in his hand. He waved his right hand and the dragon tendon twisted together. Several branches also twisted together to form a thick tendon. At the moment Hunchback Ming arrived, the gust of wind he was in quickly moved to the side. Among the tornadoes that were trying to stop him, the one he was in was very inconspicuous. At the moment Hunchback Ming moved past the tornado, the dragon tendon was thrown out by Wang Lin. Just as he knocked away the gust of wind, he noticed the fluctuation of spiritual energy around him. However, the area was filled with spiritual energy from all the divine senses his life treasure had just destroyed, so the fluctuation was hidden. If one didn't look carefully, it would be very difficult to notice. At this moment, Hunchback Ming was anxious to escape. Although he noticed it, he didn't care. He didn't even think that there were other human cultivators here besides him. However, the moment his right leg suddenly felt a strong force pulling it, his expression finally changed greatly. He didn't need to look down. With his experience, he immediately knew that this was a magical treasure made from beast tendons, and the only person who could use a magical treasure here was obviously not one of those small beasts. There was only one possibility, and that was a human cultivator. If it was in the past, Hunchback Ming wouldn't have cared about this kind of beast tendon magic treasure. Not only would he be able to shatter it with his spiritual energy, he could also use it to poison the person using it. But now, there were so many tornadoes blocking his way. Divine senses, sound waves, and other attacks came one after another. He was already tired of dealing with them, so he could only rely on a mouthful of spiritual energy to charge forward. The destruction of his life treasure made his mind tremble. If it wasn't for the fact that he had fused with the heaven-defying toad, he would have already died. At this critical moment, the dragon tendon, which he usually didn't care about, was like a divine talisman that was about to kill him. Although the dragon tendon shattered inch by inch when he crashed into it, the momentum of his charge was involuntarily slowed down a little. It was just a split second, but the consequence was that the sound wave that was chasing after him suddenly appeared behind him. The attacks of the surrounding hurricanes instantly became even more intense. A straw can't kill a camel, but it can be the key that breaks the camel's back. As of this moment, the dragon tendon's function was that straw. The moment he was hit by the sound wave, Hunchback Ming coughed out blood and was sent flying forward. Just at this moment, a tornado passed by him. An arm came out of the tornado and grabbed the bag of holding on his waist. Then the arm passed by. At this moment, Hunchback Ming could vaguely see Wang Lin sneer through the tornado. He was so angry that he coughed out another mouthful of blood. The moment the blood appeared, it gave off a dizzying aura and chased after the tornado that Wang Lin was in. After Wang Lin grabbed the bag of holding, he controlled the second devil to quickly fly toward the vortex. That was the entrance to the second trial. As for the blood, it was blocked by the small beasts flying around the tornado. However, the poison in the blood was no joke. Wang Lin has always been cautious, so the moment the tornado was hit, he jumped out of the tornado. The two devils followed closely behind him. The moment Wang Lin landed on the ground, he used the earth escape technique and quickly ran forward. As for the tornado, it was soaked in blood, and all of the small beasts inside died. Although all of this sounds slow, it actually happened very fast. In the blink of an eye, the bag of holding on Hunchback Meng's waist disappeared. Hunchback Meng's body was hit by the sound waves, and his flesh and bones were separated. The many lumps on his back all exploded, and the smelly, black liquid flew everywhere. Any small beast that touched the liquid immediately twitched and died. He saw the blood attack being blocked and Wang Lin escaping with his bag of holding. Right now, he wasn't feeling heartache for losing his bag of holding, but he was filled with hatred toward Wang Lin. If it wasn't for Wang Lin, he would have already broken out of the tornado and entered the second trial. However, all of this changed because of Wang Lin's appearance. With Hunchback Meng's mind, he naturally knew that he was just opening up a path for Wang Lin. He was also helping Wang Lin stall all of the tornadoes. Otherwise, with Wang Lin's core formation cultivation, how could he safely pass the first trial? Seeing that Wang Lin insisted on writing 9,000 words despite his illness and didn't break his promise last month, Hunchback Meng decided to give him a monthly ticket. Chapter 176. Hunchback Meng's body was picked up by the wind and disappeared into the vortex. His hatred was like a flood that drowned him. Wang Lin's body turned into smoke and disappeared from the group of tornadoes. Although there were still some scattered tornadoes, they quickly closed in on Wang Lin. They were trying to stop Wang Lin from moving forward like they did with Hunchback Meng. Wang Lin sneered. His eyes were calm. Just as the tornadoes closed in on him, one of them suddenly sped up and arrived next to Wang Lin. It wrapped around Wang Lin. Then it charged out of the other tornadoes and flew off into the distance. This happened so fast that the other tornadoes didn't even have time to react. Even if they did, with their intelligence, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Wang Lin stood inside the tornado and quickly flew toward the vortex in the distance. The moment he charged out of the tornado, he had already secretly controlled the second devil to enter a nearby tornado to steal the command. Now that everything was ready, it was much easier to escape. The Beast King inside the tornado coldly looked into the distance before its gaze fell on the tornado Wang Lin was in. Its face revealed a confused expression, but it quickly let out a roar, and the surrounding tornadoes all chased after Wang Lin. As for the Beast King, it revealed a strange expression as it looked at Hunchback Meng inside the tornado it had captured. It took him in the opposite direction from Wang Lin and slowly disappeared. The speed of the tornadoes was very different from each other. The more small creatures there were, the faster they were. As a result, the tornadoes were almost in a straight line as they chased after Wang Lin. The tornado Wang Lin picked had a decent amount of small beasts, and it wasn't slow. Although the tornadoes were chasing after him, Wang Lin wasn't afraid at all. He silently calculated in his heart before looking at the faster tornadoes behind him. He opened his mouth and spat out a ray of crystal light. The flying sword flew out of the tornado and teleported toward the tornado Wang Lin was thinking about. His G-Realm Divine sense was inside the flying sword. Wang Lin's target was not the large amount of small creatures, but the command bearers inside the tornadoes. Under the effect of his G-Realm Divine sense and the crystal light from the flying sword, one of the tornadoes Wang Lin was paying attention to suddenly collapsed. The small creatures inside all scattered with confused expressions. Wang Lin didn't stop at all. Without a word, he pointed at the air with both of his hands. Suddenly, a ray of crystal light shot out from the tornadoes chasing after him. More than half of the tornadoes that Wang Lin was paying attention to collapsed. He saw that the tornadoes behind him were showing signs of their divine sense condensing. So he decisively waved his right hand, and the crystal light flew back to him. It wasn't that Wang Lin didn't want to continue killing, but that after this battle, the small creatures would be on guard. What happened before was a surprise attack, but now, if he continued, the moment the flying sword flew out, the condensed divine sense would arrive. He didn't want to end up like Hunchback Meng, who broke his life treasure in half. Wang Lin sneered. He put away the flying sword and continued to escape. Soon, the distance between them increased. The tornadoes that Wang Lin picked before were all the ones that were larger and faster than him. Although all of this sounds slow, it happened very fast. In the blink of an eye, the distance between them had increased. The small creatures had finished condensing their divine sense and sent out bursts of lightning. Wang Lin's eyes were still calm. The moment the divine sense attack closed in, he gave the second devil an order. The small creatures under the control of the second devil all charged back. Bursts of screams came from the sky, and waves of sound waves spread out. This sound wave attack created a shock wave and pushed Wang Lin away. This sudden increase in speed caused the divine sense attack to miss. By the time the divine sense attack locked onto him again and was ready to attack again, Wang Lin's tornadoes had already flown far away. The giant whirlpool in the sky was already in sight. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. In truth, if he didn't plan on stealing Hunchback Meng's treasure, he would have already safely entered the second floor. Even now, if he gave up on the tornadoes and used them to quickly escape, he would have an 80% chance of safely entering the whirlpool. However, Wang Lin didn't plan on doing that. He didn't know what the second trial would be like. If he rushed in by himself, he wouldn't be as lucky as he was in the first trial where someone opened up a path for him. As such, he, who was a cautious person, couldn't help but turn his attention to the hurricanes that were chasing after him. Wang Lin's idea was to bring some of the tornadoes into the second trial. That way, he would be safer in the second trial. With this plan in mind, he couldn't move forward by himself. He carefully looked back at the tornadoes behind him. After pondering for a while, he decisively clenched his teeth and sent an order to the second devil. The speed of the tornadoes suddenly slowed down. The moment he slowed down, the tornadoes behind him naturally sped up. They closed the distance between them to less than 500 feet. At the same time, various divine sense and sound wave attacks arrived. At this moment, the tornadoes that Wang Lin was in were very close to the giant whirlpool. They were also less than 500 feet away. If the tornadoes flew at full speed, they would only need one breath of time. In other words, the tornadoes behind him would also need one breath of time. If they entered the whirlpool, they would need 2 breaths of time. In the first breath of time, Wang Lin took out an item from his bag of holding. The tornadoes were hit by the divine sense attacks from behind him. This time, he didn't suddenly speed up, but stopped and used the little beast's divine sense to resist. In just 1 breath of time, most of the tornadoes that Wang Lin was in had died. Wang Lin's eyes were calm. He didn't panic at all. At this moment, he was even closer to the whirlpool. At the same time, the tornadoes behind him had already caught up. In the second breath of time, Wang Lin's eyes flashed. His body shot out of the tornadoes like an arrow released from a bow. The hurricane group behind him whistled over, and the sound wave attack followed. Waves of sharp whistles came from the hurricane group in an earth-shattering manner. The moment Wang Lin left, everyone in the tornado besides the second devil died. At this time, Wang Lin's body was standing in the middle of the whirlpool. The tornadoes that were chasing him had also entered the whirlpool. The tornadoes suddenly slowed down, and some of the ones in the back immediately retreated. But how could Wang Lin let them do as they wished? He stared at the more than 40 tornadoes and shouted, "Stay here." As he spoke, Wang Lin's spiritual power suddenly flowed into the item he had taken out of his bag of holding. Suddenly, a ring of light spread out with him as the center, surrounding all the tornadoes. At the same time, the image of an azure dragon came out of the jade. Under Wang Lin's control, the azure dragon rotated around the ring of light. At this moment, because Wang Lin charged into the whirlpool, bursts of purple lightning appeared. The lightning landed on Wang Lin's body, surrounded his body, and quickly pulled him in. In the blink of an eye, the more than 40 tornadoes were all pulled into the whirlpool and disappeared without a trace. At this time, the other gusts of wind, which were almost in a straight line, also chased after him. However, as soon as they touched the whirlpool, they were fiercely bounced off. More and more gusts of wind gathered, but after many attempts, they were unable to enter the whirlpool. Slowly, they dispersed. The first trial, the Earth trial, gradually calmed down. Only Hunchback Meng's bloody body floated in the air. His eyes were filled with confusion. Before him was the 30-foot-tall body of the Beast King. At this moment, the golden finger bone on the Beast King's forehead quickly flashed and slowly appeared. As for Wang Lin, the moment he came out of the whirlpool, he immediately spread out his divine sense. After carefully observing his surroundings, he couldn't help but be startled. In front of him was a dusky world. Apart from a long, arched bridge made of black stones, there was nothing else. Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense and turned around to look behind him. His azure dragon barrier was still there. The more than 40 tornadoes rotated like crazy and smashed into the ring of light. Every time they collided, the ring of light would dim a bit. Wang Lin let out a cold snort and deactivated the defensive formation. The moment the ring of light and the azure dragon disappeared, the more than 40 tornadoes immediately scattered. At the same time, Wang Lin pointed with his right hand and the second devil appeared. It let out a roar of challenge toward the tornadoes. The tornadoes immediately paused. A small beast flew out from one of the tornadoes and collided with the second devil. Wang Lin calmly looked at the scene before him. This was something he had already planned. The reason he didn't let the second devil challenge him in the first trial was because there were too many tornadoes chasing after him. There was no way to stop them. Once the second devil challenged him, it would only attract more tornadoes. If the second devil failed, then even if he wanted to run, there would be no way out. But now there were only more than 40 tornadoes, so everything was different. 3 days later, Wang Lin stood next to the Black Stone Bridge and looked into the distance. Behind him, there were 42 tornadoes that roared and rotated. If one looked closely, they would see that they were all revolving around a tornado in the middle. Strands of red lightning were connecting them together. The spirit users inside the tornadoes had all been absorbed by the second devil. However, under Wang Lin's forceful control, the divine senses that it had absorbed were all separated out and put into the soul flag by Wang Lin to make more devils. This was to prevent the second devil from absorbing too many and getting out of control. Chapter 177. Wang Lin's eyes flashed as he stared at the Black Stone Bridge for a long time. For the past 3 days, he had been observing the stone bridge, but he didn't step on it. In this gray world, aside from the stone bridge, there was nothing else. Wang Lin pondered for a while and then waved his right hand. Suddenly, the 42 tornadoes scattered and stopped spinning. Instead, they turned into tens of thousands of small beasts that scattered in all directions. Wang Lin slightly closed his eyes. Through the second devil, he sensed these small beasts. The small beasts scattered in all directions. He could only hear the sound of them flying away until they couldn't be heard anymore. After a long time, he suddenly opened his eyes and leaped out, flying toward the northwest. As he flew, many small beasts slowly gathered from all directions, forming a majestic gust of wind behind him. Not long after, Wang Lin's body stopped. In front of him was a 300-meter tall stone tablet. The stone tablet was slightly red and emitted a demonic aura. A few small beasts were lying on top of the stone tablet. They were flapping their wings and making buzzing sounds. When they saw Wang Lin approaching, the small beasts immediately flew toward him and merged with the tornadoes. Wang Lin looked at the stone tablet and saw 3 big words written on it: the path of no return. These 3 words were filled with the vicissitudes of life. Wang Lin looked at it for a while and suddenly looked at the bottom right corner of the stone tablet. After staring at it for a while, he waved his right hand and a strong gust of wind swept past. Dust flew everywhere and a line of small words appeared on the bottom right corner of the stone tablet. I passed through the earth elemental land and subdued the Beast King. Then I entered the path of no return. This place is quite interesting, so I will leave you with a message. If you're fated to come here in the future, remember to carefully study the words no return. Wang Lin's expression was calm, but his heart was shocked. These small words were exactly the same as the words he saw when he first entered the Black Tower. It was clear that they were written by the same person. Reading between the lines, the Earth Elemental Land was extremely simple for this person. Even the powerful, sky-reaching Hurricane Beast King was subdued by him. However, after thinking about it, Wang Lin narrowed his eyes. If what this person said was true, then why was the Beast King still in the Earth Elemental Land? This person's words were most likely false. After all, the meaning of the word subdue was self-evident. Just the word subdue meant that the Beast King would follow him. Of course, it was also possible that this person had really subdued a Beast King. It was just that after countless years, another Beast King was born in the Earth Elemental Land. Whether it was real or fake, Wang Lin wasn't interested in carefully distinguishing. His gaze once again fell on the three words, road of no return, and he remained silent. After a long time, he turned around and flew towards the black stone bridge, the hurricane following closely behind him. After returning to the black stone bridge, Wang Lin patted his bag of holding, and Su Ligua immediately came out. He stared at the hurricane with jealousy and muttered in his heart, "It's just a lot of underlings. What's the big deal? I don't want underlings to follow me in the future." Wang Lin pointed at the black stone bridge. Su Ligua immediately calmed down. This time, he didn't bargain like before. Instead, he was full of energy. He glanced at the hurricane proudly and thought, "See that? Master still likes me. Otherwise, why didn't he let the second brother do this?" When he looked at Wang Lin, he had a flattering expression on his face. Without another word, he flew towards the black stone bridge. After flying for a long time, he didn't encounter any danger. He circled around the black stone bridge a few times before flying back. Wang Lin frowned and stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, a small beast flew out from the hurricane. The small beast lay on Wang Lin's palm and stared at Wang Lin motionlessly. Wang Lin waved his right hand, and the small beast immediately flew towards the black stone bridge. After taking 3 steps, the small beast's body trembled and it stopped moving. Wang Lin's gaze was serious as he stared at the small beast. The small beast trembled and slowly turned around. Its eyes revealed a look of fear. At this moment, a whirlpool appeared on the black stone bridge and swallowed the small beast. Soon, everything returned to normal. Wang Lin pondered for a bit. He understood that this black stone bridge was the only way to pass through this path of no return. He pondered for a bit and once again urged the small beast to fly towards the black stone bridge. However, the result was the same. However, there was one thing that Wang Lin noticed. If the small beasts flew together, only the first one would have a change. After it was swallowed, the rest of the small beasts would have a change, and so on and so forth. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he thought, no return. No return. It means that once you take this step, you can't come back. He pondered for a bit and didn't take another step. Instead, he sat cross-legged outside the stone bridge and took out 2 storage pouches from his robes. One of them was filled with black golden threads. This was the mysterious corpse he had stolen from the War God Temple's cave abode where he had carved the divine path. Unfortunately, there was a force on the bag of holding that prevented Wang Lin's divine sense from entering. Wang Lin knew that the divine sense of the owner of the bag of holding had to be erased before he could open it. However, this divine sense was very strong. Wang Lin only tried a few times before giving up. He wrapped his own divine sense around the bag so that it couldn't communicate with the outside world. This way, the owner of the divine sense wouldn't be able to detect it. Although Wang Lin didn't have the ability to erase the divine sense, he could still hide it with his G-Realm divine sense. The other bag of holding was the one he just stole from Hunchback Meng. The divine sense on it had completely disappeared, so Hunchback Meng must have died. Wang Lin sneered in his heart. He opened it and his eyes lit up. It was worthy of being the accumulation of his soul formation cultivator for thousands of years. There were no less than 300,000 spirit stones in the bag. They were densely packed together like a mountain, and all of them were high-grade spirit stones. What made Wang Lin's eyes light up were the 2 diamond-shaped crystals that were glowing. These are the rare top-quality spirit stones. Wang Lin's heart skipped a beat. Just these 2 top-quality spirit stones were enough for him to take this risk. In addition, there were some bottles and jars. As for magic treasures, there was only the small green cauldron that was broken in half. Aside from that, there were no other magic treasures. Wang Lin pondered for a bit and immediately understood that Hunchback Meng had been trapped for many days. so he must have used up all of his magic treasures. In fact, his guess was correct. Hunchback Ming originally had a lot of magic treasures, and they were all nascent soul level or above. However, he continuously charged out of the Black Tower, causing a lot of his magic treasures to be used up. Especially that time, he sacrificed more than 10 spirit beast substitutes to escape. He threw out a lot of magic treasures and didn't even hesitate to explode his magic treasures to fight his way out. Unfortunately, he still failed in the end. Because of this, there were no other magic treasures besides the green cauldron inside the bag. In addition to these, there were also a lot of jades inside the bag. Wang Lin took them out one by one and put them on his forehead. The more he looked, the happier he became. Most of the jades were about alchemy, refining, and spirit beasts. These things were very useful to the current Wang Lin. At the very least, he wouldn't be in a situation where he couldn't recognize any precious materials. Also, Hunchback Ming specialized in alchemy and refining poisons. The jades inside his bag of holding had detailed descriptions of these things. After looking at them for a long time, Wang Lin's knowledge increased more than 100 times compared to before. In addition to these, there was a dark green jade that caught Wang Lin's attention. There was a cultivation method inside the jade, and the name of this cultivation method was only one word: Underworld. Let's call it the Underworld art for now. The Underworld art described in detail a divine ability that could shock the heavens and make the gods weep. Using poison to enter the Tao, it was divided into 9 levels. According to the description of the cultivation method, if one cultivated to the 6th level, even a soul formation cultivator would find it difficult to survive the attack of the poison. However, this cultivation method was very tyrannical. If you cultivate it, you will have to endure things that normal people can't. You will have to use all kinds of poisons to stimulate your body and reach a state where your body is covered in poison. Also, if you can reach the 9th layer, the realm of returning to one's true self, then your body will expel the poison from your body and return to a normal person's body. Before you reach the 9th layer, your body will have all kinds of changes. The most obvious change is that pustules will grow on your body. After Wang Lin finished reading, he pondered a little and gave up on cultivating this cultivation method. The stench on Hunchback Ming's body was definitely caused by cultivating this cultivation method. Although Wang Lin didn't care about his body, the jade said that the more you cultivate this wing technique, the more poison there will be in your body. There is a chance that the poison will enter your mind and cause you to lose your mind, turning you into a living dead that only knows how to kill. This was the real reason he gave up on cultivating it. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. Although he couldn't cultivate this cultivation method, there were a lot of techniques inside. If he used them with poison, he could use them. As for the poison refining method, Hunchback Ming's life experience jade had already been carefully read by Wang Lin. His heart was very tempted. He took out the bottles from his bag of holding and followed the jade to identify them one by one. Almost all of them were poisons. There was only one bottle that contained the anti-poison pill that Wang Lin had taken before. Wang Lin saw that this anti-poison pill was a medium effect pill. Only by combining it with a light poison could the anti-poison effect be maximized. Wang Lin put everything inside the bag of holding into his own bag of holding. Then he threw Hunchback Ming's bag of holding on the ground. Then he picked up an item, and his expression became serious. This item was Hunchback Ming's life treasure, the green cauldron. Although the cauldron was broken in half, there was still a lot of spiritual energy coming from it. However, this spiritual energy was filled with poison, especially the green mist that could destroy divine sense. This made Wang Lin very cautious when he checked it. He knew that aside from the jade and the top-quality spirit stone, the most valuable thing in Hunchback Ming's bag of holding was the green cauldron. After all, this cauldron was Hunchback Ming's life treasure and had been refined by his body fire for thousands of years. When he checked the jade earlier, there was an introduction to the green cauldron. When one reaches the 2nd layer of the cultivation method, they need to have a poison in their body to suppress the poison. This small cauldron was an imitation of the legendary Medicine King cauldron. Although it was an imitation, compared to the real Medicine King cauldron, the materials were not inferior. The only difference was the essence of the tens of thousands of plants absorbed by the Medicine King cauldron. This cauldron was originally a treasure from a rank 3 cultivation country. Hunchback Meng spent hundreds of years to become a disciple of that country. Thanks to his talent, he was able to get close to the Medicine King cauldron. Then he killed his teacher and escaped into the Sea of Devils, using this cauldron as his life treasure. He forcefully refined a Medicine King cauldron into a Poison King cauldron. If he didn't die and cultivated to the 9th layer, this cauldron wouldn't be as powerful as the legendary Medicine King cauldron, but it wouldn't be far off. It could be called the real Poison King cauldron. Unfortunately, he died before he could succeed. Due to luck, this cauldron fell into Wang Lin's hands. Wang Lin recalled the description of this cauldron in the jade and pondered for a while. If he cultivated the cultivation method to a certain level, this cauldron could become his life treasure. Unfortunately, Wang Lin no longer had any plans to cultivate the cultivation method, so this cauldron would be difficult to deal with. If he couldn't use this kind of treasure, Wang Lin would be very unwilling. He had spent so much effort to make himself stronger. Although it wasn't time for him to form his nascent soul, and this cauldron didn't have much of an effect, he was in a dangerous place like this. If he could use this cauldron, then his chances of survival would increase by a lot. Wang Lin's face was as gloomy as water. He looked up at the endless black stone bridge, and his eyes flashed. Without saying a word, he opened his mouth and spat out a crystal light. The crystal light flying sword immediately circled around him and finally floated in front of him, emitting a cold light. Wang Lin looked at the flying sword and revealed a hesitant expression. Then, he clenched his teeth and slapped the sword with his hand. The flying sword immediately trembled and let out a sword cry. Thin blood-colored lines appeared on the body of the sword. These thin lines were the blood essence that Wang Lin had condensed using the blood refining technique in the state of Zhao. Although the flying sword was destroyed along with his body, the blood refining technique was extremely domineering and was forcibly engraved on the sword spirit. This sword spirit was originally invisible and without a soul. However, it had been in Wang Lin's sea of consciousness for many years and had experienced the evolution of the fragrant soul. Thus, the sword spirit developed a trace of consciousness and was completely preserved. It wasn't until Wang Lin used the refining technique of the War God Temple to refine a new sword embryo for the flying sword that the sword spirit finally completed the transfer of the sword spirit. It could be said that this flying sword had made great contributions to Wang Lin. The number of people that had died to it was too many to count. As time passed, the killing intent within the sword spirit became more and more intense. It had already turned into a powerful weapon. Wang Lin's expression became serious. His right hand slowly moved along the bloodlines on the sword. As his right hand moved, the bloodlines on the sword became redder and redder. Finally, the entire flying sword let out a cracking sound and broke apart from the bloodlines. The fragments fell to the ground. Only the bloodlines were left floating in the air. An illusory sword image was faintly discernible inside. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He slapped his bag of holding, and the reaction furnace flew out. He pointed at the green cauldron, and the two halves of the green cauldron flew into the reaction furnace. The moment the two halves entered the reaction furnace, a green mist immediately surrounded the reaction furnace, causing it to emit sizzling sounds. A cold light flashed in Wang Lin's eyes. Both of his hands formed a few seals that passed through the green mist and landed on the reaction furnace. The reaction furnace immediately began to spin. Gradually, the rotation became faster and faster. Finally, the green mist surrounding the reaction furnace formed a green vortex. Wang Lin waved his hand, and the fragments of the crystal flying sword flew into his hand. He pinched one of the fragments and stared at the rapidly spinning reaction furnace. After a long time, he suddenly waved his right hand. The fragment turned into a ray of crystal light and accurately entered the fast-spinning reaction furnace. The moment it entered the reaction furnace, the fragment immediately turned into liquid and entered the furnace. Wang Lin's eyes didn't blink. He waved his right hand again and again. Within an hour, all of the fragments were thrown into the reaction furnace. At this time, he slowly let out a breath. Both of his hands shot out a few strands of spiritual energy and hit the reaction furnace. At this moment, the reaction furnace's rotation speed doubled. Only a rotating mass could be seen. It was impossible to see inside. The green mist vortex, at first glance, seemed to be motionless. But if one looked closely, they would find that it wasn't motionless. It was just spinning too fast, creating an illusion. Still not enough, Wang Lin muttered to himself. With his divine sense, he could clearly see that the high temperature produced by the reaction furnace's rotation was still not enough for the green cauldron inside. The green cauldron was only slightly red, but it hadn't melted. Wang Lin's eyes flashed. With a thought, several items immediately flew out from his bag of holding. He didn't even look at them. He grabbed one of the items and threw it into the reaction furnace. In the instant that this object fell into the furnace, a ball of green flames suddenly rose up. Even though the reaction speed of the reaction furnace remained the same, the temperature within it suddenly doubled. The green cauldron's color had completely turned red, but there was still no sign of it melting. The item that Wang Lin had thrown out was a special refining material of the war god shrine. It was called the bright jade bloodstone. After catalyzing it with spiritual energy, it could produce a high temperature. If there were too many of these bloodstones, not only would it not increase the temperature, but it would also immediately decrease the temperature. Therefore, Wang Lin threw out a few more pieces and put them away. At this time, the temperature of the reaction furnace had reached a terrifying level. However, the green cauldron was only red and still hadn't melted. Wang Lin pondered for a bit before throwing out purple moon soaring, broken flower stone, blue moon wood, and dozens of other refining materials of the war god shrine. After he threw these things into the reaction furnace one by one, a colorful smoke came out. The smoke was shaped like an illusory cauldron. After the illusory cauldron appeared, it immediately scattered the green mist vortex. In the end, it strangely returned to its original state. Even the green mist that had scattered quickly retreated back into the reaction furnace. At this moment, the reaction furnace let out a series of roars. Gradually, cracks began to appear on the surface. Wang Lin calmed his mind and stared at the small cauldron inside. He saw that the two halves of the green cauldron had already begun to melt. However, the melting speed was too slow. If this continued, it was very likely that the reaction furnace would break and not completely melt. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He raised his right hand, and a blue flame appeared in his palm. The moment this flame appeared, the surrounding temperature immediately dropped. This was the underworld ice flame that he had formed after cultivating the underworld ascension method to the large success stage. This ice flame had already fused with Wang Lin's golden core and could be said to be endless. However, if he used it too much, it would still cause a certain amount of damage to his golden core. Therefore, he had only used this ice flame as a trump card and normally wouldn't use it easily. At this moment, seeing that the reaction furnace couldn't withstand it anymore and was about to break, Wang Lin pushed his right hand forward and the ice flame immediately flew out and touched the reaction furnace. Wang Lin's expression was highly focused. He carefully controlled the ice flame to slowly approach the reaction furnace. He especially couldn't let the slightest fluctuation in his spirit force control. He had to do his best to maintain the low temperature of the ice flame. At this moment, the cracks on the reaction furnace suddenly increased, but before they could spread, they were immediately covered by the ice flame and solidified. In just a few breaths of time, Wang Lin was already covered in sweat. He was taking a risk. If he controlled the ice flame well, he could help the reaction furnace solidify. If there was a mistake, then the result would be the reaction furnace cracking even more. At this time, the reaction furnace was being strengthened by the ice flame, so the cracking situation was alleviated. However, if he didn't limit the ice flame's low temperature, it would inevitably cause a fatal impact on the green cauldron inside the furnace. Therefore, Wang Lin was even more careful at this time. He did his best to limit the ice flame's low temperature to a point where it could solidify the furnace without affecting the green cauldron's melting. Slowly, the green cauldron began to melt. During this time, Wang Lin didn't dare to be careless. After an unknown amount of time, the green cauldron finally completely melted and turned into a dark green liquid that spread inside the reaction furnace. Wang Lin took a deep breath and formed a hand seal with his right hand. He struck out a ray of light and imprinted it on the reaction furnace. Immediately, the furnace trembled and stopped rotating. Wang Lin made a grabbing motion with his hand, and the green liquid floated out of the furnace. Within this pool of liquid, there was a faint, illusory little cauldron. Wang Lin knew that this was the cauldron spirit of the cauldron of poison. Without saying a word, he beckoned with his right hand. The sword spirit that was floating in midair immediately flew out and fused with the green liquid. At this moment, the cauldron spirit also moved and fused with the green liquid. Wang Lin's eyes turned solemn. These two different spirits did not attack or devour each other, as Wang Lin had expected. Instead, after a brief confrontation, the cauldron spirit immediately transformed into waves of green spiritual energy and drilled into the sword spirit of the flying sword. The two quickly fused together. At this point, Wang Lin could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He pointed a few times with both of his hands, and the pool of green liquid slowly solidified. According to Wang Lin's will, it turned into a small, dark green sword about 6 inches long. On both sides of the sword, there were 2 rows of densely packed small thorns. Bursts of green light flashed on the thorns. It looked quite astonishing. At this moment, the flying sword had completely solidified. Its entire body was dark green, and it contained the poison of the king poison cauldron. If one were to touch it, even if they weren't killed by the sword, they would certainly be poisoned to death. Even a nascent soul cultivator would find it difficult to escape death if he were to sneak attack this flying sword. After all, the poison inside the sword was from Hunchback Meng's king poison cauldron. However, after condensing the sword again, Wang Lin didn't dare to put it into his stomach and use his golden core to nourish it. Even when he was using it, he had to be extremely careful. If he were to get hit by the sword, he would certainly die. There was no antidote for the poison inside the king poison cauldron. Aside from Hunchback Meng, no one else could cure it. Wang Lin was full of confidence. The thorns on the flying sword were his killing move. With just a thought, the thorns would break off and shoot out, making it impossible to defend against them. Chapter 178. Wang Lin waved his right hand, and the flying sword flew into his hand. Wang Lin carefully placed it into his bag of holding, then let out a sigh of relief. He didn't want to be stabbed by a flying sword he had personally refined and then die of poison. After putting away the flying sword, Wang Lin stood up and looked at the black stone bridge in front of him. Without another word, he began to walk forward. Behind him, the whirlwinds let out whimpering whistles as they followed. Wang Lin cautiously walked forward. The road of no return seemed very long, but as soon as he walked on it, the scenery in front of him changed. The black stone bridge began to shrink until it was only about 300 meters long. On the other side of the bridge, a huge whirlpool slowly appeared. Wang Lin's eyes flickered. After a moment of thought, he suddenly extended his hand. A small beast flew over and landed in Wang Lin's hand. He waved his hand, and the beast shot forward like lightning toward the whirlpool at the end of the bridge. However, before the beast could get more than 30 meters away, a bolt of violet lightning, as thick as an arm, suddenly descended from the sky. It struck the beast, instantly transforming it into ashes. Wang Lin's expression was the same as ever. If it weren't for the restrictive spells, then all he had to do was increase his speed, and he would be able to fly across the bridge in a few moments. Therefore, he could only walk forward step by step. He couldn't suddenly accelerate. Looking at the distance of less than 300 meters, he took a deep breath and continued forward. With each step, Wang Lin was completely focused. After he had walked more than 30 meters, the gray mist around him suddenly grew thicker. Suddenly, the whirlwinds behind him disappeared. Even the second devil had disappeared. Even the divine sense connection between Wang Lin and the second devil seemed to be cut off by some invisible power. He couldn't sense it at all. Subconsciously, Wang Lin was about to look back, but just as he was about to do so, he stopped himself. Wang Lin's face was grim. After a moment of thought, a cold smile appeared on his face as he continued forward. This time, he walked more than 30 meters. Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar came from behind him. Even the bridge itself began to shake. Wang Lin immediately steadied himself. This roar was very familiar. It was the roar of the wild beast, the red flood dragon. A hot, fishy smell blew from behind him. Wang Lin closed his eyes and did not use his divine sense to check. This place was called the Road of No Return, which meant that once you stepped onto it, there was no way back. If that was it, it wouldn't be a big deal, but after Wang Lin's analysis, he knew that this place wasn't that simple. It was very likely that not only could he not go back, he couldn't even turn his head back, and it was very likely that he couldn't even use his divine sense to look back. In short, everything had to be done according to the word no return. If there was one mistake, he would die on this bridge like the little beast. Although he couldn't turn his head and couldn't use his divine sense to check, Wang Lin could imagine that there was only one possibility for the hot, fishy smell to be so close to him. It was that the red flood dragon had opened its mouth and was right behind him. However, although Wang Lin was shocked, he didn't panic. It was impossible for the red flood dragon to appear here. This must be some kind of illusion technique. Just at this moment, there was a flash of red light to his right. Wang Lin's pupils shrank. That red light was clearly a tongue. Cold sweat dripped from his forehead. He glanced sideways and noticed that there was something sticky on his right shoulder. It was giving off a strange smell. Wang Lin took a deep breath and his eyes gradually calmed down. His footsteps were still calm as he calmly walked forward. The red tongue around his body spat out more and more frequently. The roars behind him and the breath it exhaled caused the corners of his clothes to flutter. A bloodthirsty killing intent suddenly came from behind him. Wang Lin looked at his fluttering clothes and revealed a cold smile. He wasn't too sure before, especially after seeing the sticky liquid on his right shoulder. He wasn't sure if this was an illusion or not. But now, when he saw his clothes fluttering in the wind, there was no doubt in his heart. He was completely certain that this was an illusion technique. The reason was because of his clothes. The thing behind him was a desolate beast. If it was really so close to him, all it needed to do was blow and he would be sent flying far away. But now, it seemed like all it could do was cause his clothes to flutter. Wang Lin's willpower was firm. He did not hesitate to continue walking forward. No matter what sounds he heard behind him, he did not stop. At this moment, the red flood dragon behind him let out a violent roar and tried to devour him. Wang Lin clearly saw this scene from the corner of his eye. He did not even blink. His speed was steady and there were no fluctuations as he calmly walked forward. The instant the red flood dragon swallowed him, its body turned into a gray mist and dissipated. Within the mist, Wang Lin's figure slowly walked out. He walked until he was 90 feet away. Just 100 feet away from crossing the bridge, he suddenly heard a light cough behind him. This cough was very soft, but when it landed in Wang Lin's ears, it was like a bolt from the blue. It reverberated in his mind, and he could not help but stop walking. His body trembled, and 2 streams of tears flowed down from the corners of his eyes. The cough continued. Although Wang Lin knew that this was all an illusion, he still had the urge to turn around and take a look. Taiju, turn around and let father see you. A familiar voice rang out. Wang Lin clenched his fists and closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with determination. He took a deep breath and continued walking forward. Taiju, mother wants to see her child. How can you be so heartless? You don't even turn around. Wang Lin closed his eyes again. His feet trembled, but he still walked forward without any hesitation. He suddenly reached the end of the bridge. During these last 100 feet, his parents' voices constantly echoed in his ears. The moment he reached the end, his parents' voices disappeared. The whistling of the tornadoes once again entered his ears, and his connection with the second devil was re-established. Wang Lin did not turn around. He stood silently in front of the whirlpool for a long time. Finally, he sighed and took out the jade slip that Li Muin had given him. After activating it, he surrounded the tornadoes behind him and entered the whirlpool together. Pulled by the purple lightning, Wang Lin disappeared into the whirlpool. When he walked out of the whirlpool, what appeared in front of him was a towering mountain that pierced through the clouds. The mountain was surrounded by clouds, and it was impossible to see the end of it. Standing at the foot of the mountain, Wang Lin's figure seemed very small. The moment he saw the mountain, Wang Lin was startled. However, he quickly deduced that the path of no return just now was not the second trial. Otherwise, based on what the Ji Emperor, Duanmu Ji, and the others had said, the third trial required Wang Lin's death curse art to pass. He really could not see any signs that this place required divine sense to pass. Wang Lin looked at the towering mountain in front of him. In his heart, he had already guessed that perhaps this was the second trial. He swept the area with his divine sense, and his pupils immediately shrank. His gaze was fixed on the foot of the mountain. There was clearly a broken restriction there, and strands of red light flickered within it. Wang Lin muttered to himself for a moment, then walked toward the mountain. Not long after, he arrived at the location of the restriction he had seen before. It was obvious that someone had destroyed it, revealing a path that could only allow one person to pass. Red light flickered on both sides of the path. Wang Lin carefully looked at it. When he raised his head to look at the top of the mountain, his gaze became extremely cautious. He was certain that someone had entered the mountain before him. There was nothing else around the second trial. It was clear that this mountain was the key to passing this trial. There was only one path, and that was to climb to the top. For mortals, climbing a mountain, especially a mountain of this height, was extremely difficult. However, for cultivators, it was not difficult at all. However, based on Wang Lin's experience, this mountain must also have restrictions that restricted flying. One could only climb it on foot, not on a sword. After pondering for a moment, Wang Lin looked at the hurricane fist behind him. He waved his right hand, and the 40 or so hurricanes immediately began to merge together, gradually forming a huge hurricane. Wang Lin's body leapt into the hurricane. The moment he touched the edge of the hurricane, a path opened up, as if welcoming Wang Lin, allowing him to enter. As he stood within the hurricane, Wang Lin willed the hurricane to move forward. After they passed through the restrictive spell, Wang Lin's divine sense could clearly sense that the restrictive spell was slowly restoring itself. Wang Lin's heart sank. If the restrictive spell could automatically restore itself, then he wouldn't be able to use the same method he had used in the first trial, which was to have someone open the path for him. Having reached this point in his train of thought, the divine sense of the tens of thousands of small creatures within the hurricane suddenly gathered together. With Wang Lin's divine sense as the lead and the second devil as the center, it swept out in all directions. He carefully controlled the enormous divine sense to scan the area from bottom to top. Gradually, Wang Lin's face grew darker and darker. This place was filled with restrictive spells, almost everywhere. It would not be an exaggeration to call this mountain a mountain of restrictive spells. Considering the restrictive spells, there was no need to even mention climbing up. If one wasn't careful and triggered one of the restrictive spells, they would be reduced to nothing more than a corpse. Within the range of Wang Lin's divine sense, one of the restrictive spells was rapidly restoring itself. In the blink of an eye, it was back to normal. Wang Lin withdrew his divine sense. After pondering for a moment, he walked out of the hurricane and took out a bag of holding. He waved his right hand, and the hurricane behind him, along with the second devil, entered the bag. Wang Lin had obtained this bag of holding from an insect cultivator. It couldn't be used to store magical items, but it had a special effect on living creatures. It could keep them alive inside. After Wang Lin had obtained it, he had experimented with the small creatures a few days ago. After confirming that it had such an effect, he had used it to store the small creatures. After the small creatures entered the bag of holding, Wang Lin tied the bag to his waist. He took a deep breath and carefully walked forward. He spread out his divine sense to observe his surroundings. When he had used the small creatures to scan the area with his divine sense, he had noticed that there were some small passageways between the restrictive spells. These passageways were too small for the hurricane to pass through. Furthermore, the restrictive spells around them were complete. If he touched them, it would be triggered. That was why he had given up on using the hurricane to reach the top of the mountain. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.